And go.
Hey guys, Tarke. Where did he go? Okay,
I can't believe you just went on go
I'm here.
too. Damn,
No, I'm
I
here.
can't ever perform like that.
Hey guys, podcast
It's like,
here.
it's a go when you
Alright.
went.
Hey guys, Tarke here, and this is our first Baeclast after the Harvest announcement, so that's very exciting. So expect a lot of rampant speculation, and then in however many weeks' time, us all being completely and utterly wrong on every opinion we have. So to start off, Raiz, what did you think of the Harvest announcement?
I don't give opinions. I only throw down facts, my dude. And Harvest is looking great, honestly. I think I'm getting exactly out of it what I was expecting. I wanted like a, I know this is blasphemous, but like a synthesis bestiary type of thing. And I think that's pretty much exactly what we're getting, with my favorite type of balancing sprinkled on top, which is skill tree changes. Whenever there's an issue with any balancing regarding anything ever, I'm just like, put more shit on the skill tree. And that's exactly what they're doing, so I'm loving it. I am a little bit concerned about them adding the timeless jewels, but yeah, we're gonna get to all that. As to what I've been doing, I haven't done anything PoE wise. I did like a fresh start thing to practice with Soul Rend. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it the spell slinging Soul Rend setup or self cast?
Yeah, I saw it on Titan Killer's thing, and Carve was playing it, or he was like coaching him through it. It's pretty freaking good. Honestly, it's a pretty serious contender to pretty much the only other like good setup for leveling, which is Caustic Arrow. Caustic Arrow Trickster is really good for leveling, but you know, it's a little bit awkward switching from a bow to then like do spell damage stuff and all this if you're looking to essence drain and whatnot. Yeah, the Soul Run spell stringo stuff was really cool. I mean, it is a little bit socket heavy. Like if you've ever leveled with essence drain in the old times when you could get the +1s and you had like a contagion setup and everything, you needed like 4 different socket setups. It's pretty much exactly that. So your gear can be a little bit wonky, but I think it's, quite frankly, I think it's one of the best league starter that's non-onslaught based right now. Spellslinger's pretty cool.
So it's basically just for setting up an ED character?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Setting up literally any chaos character,
right?
I would say.
But it's not something you would like stick with through into like yellow and red maps. You wouldn't keep spell slinging.
See, I don't really know because I wanted to experiment with switching to CI as soon as possible, and Spellslinger and CI on SSF trying to switch fast, like that doesn't quite mix because you lose access to discipline unless you're like severely limit your DPS. So I don't really know. I know Titan Killer took it to like tier 10s, and apparently it was pretty good. I don't know if he played past that though.
Okay.
I think Carve did mention that it pretty much starts dropping off around the red maps. So I think it lasts quite a minute, you know, in an SSF scenario. So that's like around level 90, something like that. I mean, depends on your watch time progression.
Isn't it normally where ED falls off though, still as well?
Oh, ED's horrendous for leveling.
Yeah, but like even into like red maps, I mean, like pretty much all chaos skills would kind of struggle at that point, wouldn't they?
They kind of have that like you now need like the plus level bow. There's like that, always that weird break point. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's every caster. Like where you've got that breakpoint when you hit level 19 gems, you don't quite have like good enough gear, and then when you're going through like tier 10s till tier 15s and 16s on level 19 gems, I feel like that's pretty painful for all casters. Yeah. But honestly, in my eyes, unless ED receives some changes, at least for SSF racing to 100, it's pretty much the top contender to me, especially with some of the brand changes that I'm not 100% on, like how the brand recall works yet.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I think you're pretty safe. I don't think ED is going to see much in the way of changes, but go ahead, Tarke, sorry.
I was going to say, because I'm sure it's on a lot of times talking about brands, so we could do that if we just focus on like the initial like league impressions. Octavian, I'm going to save yours to last. If like we both have very different league impressions to everyone else. What about you, Niggy? What did you think of the league?
I think I'm pretty much on board with Raiz here. It looked really good. Yeah, no, I think I guess there's a little bit of synthesis in there. I mean, with the crafting, obviously. I mean, I feel like can be good crafting in any league. I don't know about Leho. I guess like you're setting up like a maze of plants, which is kind of like a little bit like synthesis. Like, I guess that's kind of cool. I think the whole farm build aspect is actually going to be pretty fun, though. I don't think it's going to take too much effort, but I think there's going to be like really fun moments and things to look forward to. So I'm really looking forward to that part of it for sure. And it's not going to be as tedious as it was in synthesis, where you had to like map out this whole labyrinth thing and construct it and figure out how it worked. It's more like you slap down some plants and it's pretty easy to mess up and kind of recover, because from what I understood, you could, like, if you had one growth cycle wrong, you could just take it out and just lose that cycle and re-enrage a little bit, and then you're fine. So I think that's going to be really cool. And then cool unique so far, which I'm always happy about. Lots of things happening in the skill tree, and yeah, it's just looking good.
I'm surprised about two things. Like the way they tried to make sure that we know that it's easy to do the farming stuff. Like Chris mentioned that so many times. I was so surprised about that.
I think it's important.
Yeah,
I think
Go ahead.
Okay, one thing I think has been a little bit problematic is that they've tried too hard in recent leagues to create a unique experience that on its own was like this elaborate thing and really fun, where it didn't really flow too well with just the game. So you had like these opposing two things you wanted to do, and it kind of felt like you were taking away from just playing PoE. And so I'm happy that we just get to play PoE, and then we had kind of this like side thing that kind of augments it more.
I mean, that was the main issue that I remember you saying with Blight League, is that you liked traditional tower defense, but you felt like you had these two different playstyles that didn't like gel together.
Yes.
On the topic of like things gelling together, and specifically the comparison to Synthesis League, we've only seen a few of the crafting options that are available from the system so far. But I like that as opposed to synthesis crafting, this isn't like they're adding on this extra thing, this extra layer that you have to learn. All of the crafting options so far have been things that are integrated into already existing crafting systems in Path of Exile. Like, they're very easy to understand if you know how Alt, Aug, Regal, Exalt, Annul works, because it's just, a targeted Annul, or a thing that swaps a fire mod for a cold mod. Like, they're working within the systems and doing new things in those systems, rather than being an entirely separate system with its own bench that you have to learn and understand all the ins and out of, and learn all these different implicits and all that. Like, it's much more intuitive in terms of what the recipes actually are doing from what we've seen.
I think on that note, I mean, one of the things that makes it intuitive is that you have the resources and it literally tells it right there on the interface what you get.
Oh, that is obviously a big step too, yeah.
I mean, with synthesis, the only way to know was to go on a spreadsheet outside of the game and then kind of search through like a browser search or whatever to find the thing, and then there's some arbitrary number. Like the fact that it just shows it in game is really good.
That's the bigger maybe not the bigger point, but that's the point I was kind of getting at, that it was like arbitrary with synthesis. Like, it was basically this whole other system that they thought up, and that was cool. The designers came up with this cool system, and then they're like, all right, and now we put it in Path of Exile, rather than being a system that's designed to fit comfortably within Path of Exile from the get-go.
Oh my god, I'm trying to find the mods to like back up Octavian's point in my history, and all I can see is all the pictures of Chris Wilson holding up the fucking sign. I've seen like 30
You mean
of those
the new
today.
crafting mods, like from Harvest, that we've seen?
Yeah, the list of them.
Because we've seen replace a fire mod with a cold mod. We've seen, a targeted and all that targets a fizz mod. Yeah, defense-oriented stuff. Like, these are all things that just play with existing systems. This isn't a new system. This is just stuff that plays with the existing systems in new ways.
They're also conceptually very straightforward. It's not that thing that PB likes to do where it's trigger word of light, and you're like, great, the fuck is Word of Light, you know? Or like,
This is true.
gain Ghastly Apparition. You're like, cool, I don't know what that is. Transform oil into another tier of oil. That's like, I know how that functions, you know?
Yeah, but it does have a little bit of the unique PoE style where it's like transform this unique item into a unique item, but
Of the same
also of
type
the
and
same
yeah,
type.
yeah.
It's like, wait, what do you mean by type? Like it's gonna be the same color?
That's
Like what's
fair,
going on
but
with
like there's still a few, and obviously we've only seen so few of the recipes. And apparently there's like a lot more complex stuff they haven't shown us yet. That's something that Bex was telling me about. So I'm sure when it actually launches, there'll be some like crazy stuff. Maybe there'll be some like weird seed combination action that we aren't aware of, kind of like with blight oils. But at least it's at its core setup a much more approachable system. Because I know with Synthesis, I definitely had this problem of like, I'm just gonna put all of these glowy items in my stash so that when I eventually work out how they work, I've got them. And then you had all these people who just been like hoarding low-level items for like a week or two, then realize that 90% of them were trash, and it's like, oh, I've got to sort through this massive dump tab, and you won't have that, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at, I'm looking at the old Synthesis implicits here, and I mean, they're all, it's just generic modifiers, like half of that, like almost all of them, like all the thing, we know all of them already. Like we knew all of these already. So I'm not really sure if I think that they were really new systems, I guess, in how you obtain them with, you know, the vendor recipe, or how did it, I didn't even play that much.
Bench in the Nexus.
Yeah.
I feel like it was more of a UI or UX problem. I don't know which term to use here, but I feel like that was the problem with it. It's not like it was that complicated of a system. It was just, it was so much trial and error, and there were so many iterations you had to go through. That was just tedious. So you kind of waited for someone to do it for you.
And not only that, because none of it was guaranteed. You could have done everything right, gotten unlucky like 4 times in a row, and then you start doubting like, did I use the right items or not? And it like,
which was using the system of waiting from PoE already. You know, I mean, all these systems are very core to PoE. It's just their implementation was quite awful. I actually think that the meta crafting of this league might actually be quite advanced, because essentially we get something like a fossil plus an influence exalt in one. You know, we get all these like combo pieces.
Crafting this coming league is going to be like, it's going to reach a goddamn peak. Like, I'm not trying to say that this is probably going to be a league where you can craft things that are, you know, as crazy as stuff from Synthesis League, or rather, it doesn't push the envelope in terms of what is possible necessarily, because it's working within previous systems, but it pushes the envelope in terms of how easy it is to make them. So more people.
I'm so surprised that you think that, because my whole thing was that I was surprised that people took Synthesis so seriously, because the intent was drastically different as to what we're getting with this league. Synthesis, as Chris stated, was like a implicit boost. I mean, that's like 5-10%. Sure, there were some powerful modifiers like the explodey stuff that wasn't previously available, but with this system, I feel like it's a really good one, because you're going to allow, you're not gonna give as much room to do crazy stuff for the players who already invest a whole lot of time. But then the people lower or average can really spice things up in like a pretty
meaningful
way.
That's kind of what I was saying. Like, Synthesis pushed the envelope, pushed to the top of what was even possible with an item. Whereas, like, from what we've seen, this is all purely speculatory, as Tarke said at the beginning of the episode. Like, very well, there might be crafting recipes and mechanics involved in this league that allow you to do things similar to Synthesis and add modifiers that are impossible through other means. But so far, we've just seen it interact with things like influence, or, you know, act like a super exalt, or act like a super annul.
Right.
And that will open up crazy good endgame items to more players. So this league probably is going to be more impactful in terms of the crafting that it allows for the player base than Synthesis was, even though it won't make as crazy items at the top end.
Also, it will introduce a lot of new people to the system, because there's a lot of people who are afraid to craft. Like they have this fear that they're wasting their currency. It's something I experienced quite a lot with the build review series I've been doing with my patrons. I've had people message like, "Hey, please, when you review my build, don't add anything I can't easily buy because I don't know how to craft, or I don't like crafting, or like I'm afraid of crafting." So with a system like this where it's like add an influence, you can be like, oh, so I've got the item I type, I add the influence, oh, I got the thing I want. You know, it introduces people to a lot of systems, which I think is good.
That's why I recommend for everybody to play SSF at least once, man.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it just gives you so much freedom. You're just like, I'm just going to click this chaos. And I know it's probably not a good idea, but fuck it, dude. And you never feel bad about it. And every now and then, you feel real good.
Yeah.
It's not as much of a problem anymore because map sustain is like basically a no-brainer. You know, you put map in device and you'll get maps back. It doesn't really matter what you do. But back when it was much more of an issue, solo self-found, like when I first was getting into it, is what made me realize, oh, so I should just be chiseling and alching and sextanting like all my maps, because when you're in solo self-found, what else are you going to do with them? That is their whole purpose, you know? But in Trade League, I was saving them just so I could get that big map at the end game and only use them on the most important map. But really, just use them. Just use them.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Ziggy? What was your reaction? I mean, obviously you had a few more days to seep in on it, right? You know.
How much in advance did you know?
I think the press tour was a little bit under a week before the reveal. So yeah, like an extra 5 days or something, I think, to sit on it. I think I'm pretty amped for it personally. I love the crafting league. You guys are all saying it looks like synthesis to me. It's more like a bestiary metamorph hybrid.
Yeah.
I don't really see too much synthesis going on here. I think synthesis's obscurity of crafting was the worst problem that it had. Because I personally love like any crafting mechanics coming along with league stuff is the favorite thing they can give me. But I didn't even end up using synthesis crafting that much because it was just too obscure and painful to engage with, like collecting all the items and figuring out what they did. And hell, I'm happy to get on PWDB and do fossil crafting and check the fossil things and come up with combos and stuff like that. But synthesis was like next level of obscurity beyond that, like figuring out what items you needed to combine, what sort of things were possible, and getting the right mod tiers and grown. So this seems like the complete opposite of that because everything is set in place. And like Octavian was saying, it's all within the current game systems. I think my biggest concern for the implementation of Harvest's crafting is the fact that everything in the crafting that we've seen so far pretty much references tags like physical or life or defense. And there is no explanation in game anywhere of what those tags are and which mods have those tags. You should be able to hold Alt or whatever and see like the tags for each mod. So like, you know, see that this is physical. Because if we want this to be something that like what Tarke was saying, where this isn't an exalt, you can get an exalt effect without having to physically use an exalt, which is difficult for someone who's nervous about crafting for their first times to do, because they're like, oh, I can buy 5 items with this that I want to get, or I can click this and have no idea if it's going to be a good idea or not. If you want people to actually like engage with that properly, then they need to know what the mods are gonna do. They need to be not about to do a craft and be like, I want to interact with this armor mod that I have. I'll use this physical craft because, you know, armor, physical. That makes sense, right? Obviously.
I mean, there was I can't remember specifically what it was, but there was the whole thing where I spent a whole lot of currency, and then Octavian was like, "Yeah, that didn't work because of X," and I was like, "Oh yeah, fuck." So yeah. I'm 100% on board with that. Yeah.
Okay. Without worrying people too much, if you're on trade, same thing will happen with this league, by the way. But in terms of like the fear of crafting, because these are seeds, and once people figure out what the seeds do and which ones are used for the certain crafts, they will start hoarding them. I think it's more like it's more about players just need to I don't know, get a little frisky. Start taking a little chance where, you know, there might be a little loss. There's so much fun to gain. If you're always worried about whether or not you're getting the most out of it, all I can say is that you will never get the most out of it. Right? I mean, I remember like spending 600 chaos this league on a Vermilion ring, and I ended up with nothing. You know, it's just like, oh, I really need to upgrade my ring. And I ended up just kind of throwing 600 chaos away. I was like, whoops, that was a bad idea.
You're supposed to be encouraging them, Noogie.
You really sold this crafting idea to me, Noogie. Thanks. I think I might
I
try
do
that
hate
too.
my money. I'm going to do what Noogie did.
I mean, we've all done that thing, though, where you're like, okay, I've saved up like 2,000 alterations. I'm using those for like an end game craft. But for now, I'm just going to use like 200. Okay, just 500.
Yeah.
And then you like rage through 2,000. Like, why hasn't this mod appeared?
I do the thing that Noogie says, like, especially if I'm racing and I'm just like, people are like, Raiz, you're complaining about not getting maps. Just use your scarabs. Just use your fossils. Just use whatever. And I'm just like, dude, I don't have an unlimited amount. And then I hit level 98 and die, and I have like 300 of it each in my stash. And I'm just like, this motherfucker. It happens every time. I'm so awful about that.
99 elixirs after you defeat Sephiroth, kind of.
yeah, but then chaos, I can spam that shit all day.
I
Yeah,
100% agree though with Ziggy that we need a way to see what we're getting in terms of crafting. Like, it needs to be easier to see what kind of outcomes I could expect.
Yeah, I'm always on board with more information for players like that. There's oftentimes a view taken by some of the corners of the community that like that will devalue things. You know, I spent all this time going on a PewDB to look all this information up. You should have to too. And like, just, I mean, it's not hand holding for the game to tell you what the item you're about to use does. It's not telling you what to do with it. It's just giving you accurate information on what it will do. It's still your decision whether you use it, how you use it, and when you use it.
You also can't make the argument that it would confuse new players because we have advanced tooltips as an option. Like, when you've got like special options to show more stuff, you can't then be like, oh, but it'd be too much info to new players. You could argue that maybe the like stuff would get too filled up, but some of the items they've made in the like essences and all these random things,
Maybe
like
even 2 of those. It's like you click Alt, it shows 1. You click Control, it shows the rest. Then you click Shift, it shows even more. It's just like, just so it doesn't hit you with like a fucking wall.
I mean,
Control caps, hold on item.
You also have to like there'll be like vol skills, and you like hover over the vol, so it's like your screen top to bottom going to the edge.
I think it's vol cold snap actually doesn't fit on the screen.
Yeah.
There's a couple, yeah. Cold snap's a good one.
Well, all right, so now for the slightly spicier bit. So Octavian, what was your initial reaction to the league?
I thought it was a pretty cool idea.
A cool idea, yeah. You must be someone very intelligent came up with an idea that good. Yeah.
Why do you ask?
Oh, I didn't no reason.
Just for the podcast?
You can explain it maybe.
What Tarke is talking about, and anyone who saw his league reveal stream or the YouTube video he put out recently, is that Tarke and I, before we went down to New Zealand, foolishly decided that we would be amateur developers and try and work on a league design concept. And the league design concept we came up with, I don't think we had a name for it.
No.
But essentially you would find like carnivorous plants, and then you'd kill them, and you'd take their seeds, and you'd go to your garden, and you'd grow things in your garden, and then you'd get cool crafting options out of your garden, like being able to target and null a certain mod off of an item, all that sort of stuff. And this was a couple weeks before we went down to New Zealand for the ExileCon trip. It was very rough and very like bare bones in a couple of Google Docs and some Discord conversations, but it's, it was just eerie seeing a very similar league mechanic be the one that was revealed.
There was a good 2 hours of I was watching like Ziggy's videos and stuff, and I couldn't take in any information. Because I was like, this is our league. What the fuck? This is our... No, like... And I was like rewatching it. And like, if you actually go back and watch my Twitch VOD, it's worth watching it. Just so you just be like, the fuck, dude? Like, no?
Great.
Yeah, it was... I'm still like coming to terms with that. And I was trying to explain this before the stream. It's not like a situation of, oh, they stole our idea or this or the other, but it's just... I've never had a league before where I've had so much emotional investment in it. And there are certain things that were different. Because, like, the fact that, like, with the stuff that we were kind of thinking around...
You mean worse? There are certain things that are worse
Well, yeah,
than
because
your idea.
our idea, we had these cool carnivorous plants that you'd encounter in maps, right?
Okay.
Well, no, but this is exactly it, because you can't instantly think, well, we would have done this differently, or they've done that. So
Like
it's
think blight, but thorns.
yeah. So yeah, it's yeah, I don't know.
But the thing is, when Ziggy asked Chris about how they came up with it, that was when Chris said, "Well, we were at Jonathan's house."
Well, but that story doesn't
at a
actually
grill.
make sense, though.
No, but he never. Well, that's the thing. But he never specified what time. Maybe
No, but
it was that time when you were telling them about it.
but
when we were
At
at Jonathan's
house at a grill.
Yeah.
That happened.
I mean, we did actually talk to some devs about our idea. And again, I don't think that like anything, because it's one of those things of, if you say I want to add gardening to PoE, there aren't many ways to do it. If you're like, oh, I think that'd be fun. And Orion, who some people might know, I was speaking to Orion about league ideas, and he had a very similar league idea as well. It wasn't a very unique idea. But I did speak to Bex, as I always speak to Bex after league announcements. And I was like, oh, it's really weird, because, like, you know, we spoke about this idea to Chris. And she said, oh, I spoke to Chris about it. He wasn't in the meeting when it was pitched. So it's not a case of he acts. So again, I'm not saying anyone stole anyone's ideas or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I have a weird emotional investment with the league. So yeah, it's hard to separate my like criticisms or anything like that, because yeah. Anyway, we all know that Moore's had this league.
I mean, it is
first.
a very innovative league. It's not like any other game has done it before.
It's a very straightforward idea, and again, like we all stole Moore's idea, so it doesn't matter.
I am surprised that we don't fight something to get the seeds in the first place. Like that's
I do think it's weird. Yeah.
Design. That we just walk over and pick up the seeds. But I mean, it's kind of funny even that it's just like normally always there's a fight, and now it's like, hey, these are just friendly seeds.
Wait,
you pick up.
You're
think that's
right.
a
I
very
didn't even think
purposeful
about that.
decision. I think that's a very purposeful decision.
Yeah,
because
straight after delivery.
we've had this conversation a few times with devs on the Baeclast where they've talked about like, oh, maybe we'll start cutting league mechanics. You know, maybe Torment will go or something like that, because mapping is getting too clustered and overblown. So having the thing be separate in its own zone, akin to say Delve or the Vol Temple, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
What I want to know is why didn't they implement like 10 different trowels and pairs of glove types that you have to equip to harvest different seeds? Or maybe like some sort of seed net sort of system where you have to match the right colors to get the right seeds? That's what I was.
My God.
I mean,
I didn't implement something like
the
that.
most important thing that it was missing for our original concept is we had this mini game where you'd have to train farm animals to aid you with the cultivating of the plants. And I think it's really disappointing that I mean, what about the horses and the cows? And then we had the thing with the tractors. Yeah.
And if you logged in at the crack of dawn, then you'd get a benefit for waking up early to go out to the farm.
Yes. I'll be down for that.
Early bird farming.
See, but the thing is, I feel like 2 years ago, that would have been the league, right? Like, we needed synthesis. We needed bestiary, okay? Or else.
They're learning.
There was that weird period of time where every league was just getting like higher and higher concept, but more crazy. And now they're kind of like, okay, we can still do high concept, but let's do like simple implementation.
But I really like that though. Because I know people complain about that a lot, but the more I was talking about all the features, I really enjoyed the simplicity, but then also a little bit of everything. I thought synthesis, despite its flaws, captivated that pretty well because it was paired up with a lot of changes regarding abilities. Now we're getting reworks of uniques on top of it. We're getting crafting. We're getting like potential bossing. We're getting reworks of abilities, and I guess you can argue new abilities. Like there's just so much of everything. I find that great. A lab change for the first time in like ever.
Some kinds.
Yeah,
I don't want to get people's hopes up too much about that. People are gonna have like wild, crazy ideas about they're fixing lab. They're gonna make it fun. The lab's gonna be great.
It'll be like
I would
a different
lower it.
chest at the end of it. Yeah.
Like lab
I'm
is gonna
so,
have
like...
lab is gonna have lab but green or something. Like
Yeah.
I think the new lab is gonna be cool, but I don't think it's gonna be world shaking. Lab
I
is
can't
still gonna be
believe it.
annoying if you don't like lab. I'm pretty sure.
But they're underselling it so much, but not in the usual style. Like whenever GGG would be like, we're underselling it, like don't worry, they would straight up say like don't worry about it. But this one, they're keeping it. I mean, it's the most mysterious thing about the whole release, right? Like we don't really know anything about it, and Chris wasn't willing to talk about it. I feel like this is the fucking bomb, dude.
I hope you're
They're
right.
gonna drop the nuke on this one.
I hope you're right.
I'm waiting for the
Yeah.
I
angry
remember-
Reddit threads. Raiz made me happy again. I was so hopeful.
Steve,
I remember.
No, this isn't the sort of thing that you would advertise, right? Because nobody's gonna give a fuck about it. So the
Hey,
player base, you
that's-
can drop the bomb, but
that's
like
a
you're not gonna
lie.
be like, oh yeah, come over to PoE for your puzzles.
Okay,
Like,
so
what?
this I think was my favorite thing about announcement day is I raided Suit Size Small after my stream. That guy was losing his fucking mind. Because if you don't know, Suit Size Small is, you know, PvP Lab guy is running every day, and he was like, "What's this thing? What do they do? Who do I talk to?" I've never seen someone so animated.
I really care too. I think the player base gives a fuck. Like I think they really care. I think some people don't even recognize how much they potentially care. But I'm just saying, from like advertising to people outside of the game, it's much cooler to show like the big earthquake go boom, right?
I mean,
Like,
even if it's just like souped up Uber Duber Lab, where you know it's Uber Lab but 10 levels higher, and Uber Azaro has all these crazy new mods that he's going to murder you with, I'd be cool with that. That would be really fun, because that would take me back to the days when Uber Lab first came out, and I remember watching like videos on Ziggy's channel here of like, you know, really slow, methodical runs through Lab, getting every little bit of loot and getting real happy at the boxes at the end, like those huge loot explosions of whetstones and whatever. Like, I would love to go back to a feeling like that, but I don't think this is going to change. Like, I don't think this is going to fundamentally change how Lab functions. I don't think this is going to fundamentally change how enchants function.
No.
With like, you know, the long-standing concerns that people have about the system.
Don't say that. This is my only chance to be at the 1% again, Octavian, please.
Okay,
I think
Yeah,
go
I
ahead.
can't imagine they would tie like the enchant fixes to this. Raiz, I'm sorry, buddy. I don't know.
Why not?
People in chat are always like, Ziggy knows. I know the exact same amount of stuff that you all know now. I've revealed everything. Everything to you that I knew. So yeah, speculation. But
okay,
I don't
so
think so.
just to ask Raiz real quick. So I have a really rocky relationship with my dad. Will the new lab fix it?
Probably. Yeah.
Probably. Okay, good.
Is your dad a lab farmer? That's a lot of stress. I mean, Chris even said that there's like multiple ones of them. No,
Yeah,
he
there'll
said
be
like,
different
oh,
ones.
maybe there's
Yeah,
gonna be
yes,
one like
yes.
this, one like this. Like, come on.
I mean,
There's
think
gonna be
about
one that's gonna
exciting.
be
I'm
like
sorry.
faster, a melee one. You know, maybe utility.
Maybe.
Think about what they're doing in this league. It's
Yeah.
all experiments. It's
Yeah.
all about creating new systems. Why wouldn't doing a new lab have some kind of implication of what they would like to do with lab in the future? Why would they why would they even use lab as a like an upgraded version through this system? Like, who actually who likes it that much that they think it's just on its own without having any improvements to what we actually get out of it from a reward point of view, thinks it's that great.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the problem is, I think you can't forget about it. That's the
Yeah.
like, we all don't want to think about lab, but then like everybody has to do it, so you can't just like leave it be in a fucked up state, right?
I think
Like, eventually you have to address it.
I think the thing that you need to keep in mind is since the implementation of lab, basically none of the leagues have had any interaction with it outside of maybe, I think it was like Mayhem,
Right.
they'd be running like a bunch of Mayhem
Best
mods
Jerry.
at the very end. But like 90% of the leagues that made, they don't have anything to do with lab. People have wanted lab reworks for ages and ages. We know with PoE 2 they're going to be redoing the lab system because they've said how they're going to change how Ascendancy stuff all works in PoE 2. When you've got this new system, like, okay, so we've got these plants, we want to come up with, I mean, I think Rory said this, it's like, okay, we want to come up with like 300 ideas for nodes when they're doing the cluster jewels. They just throw them all out there, they pick the best ones, they throw a bunch away. So it's kind of like, okay, how can we have these fun things for lab? Like, what can we do? Okay, we'll have crafting. Okay, we've got specified crafting. Is there anything we could do which would be like crazy? Or maybe we could do some map crafts. I mean, I guess that's kind of cool. What else could we do? There might have just been one guy at the back just like, what if we had like, you could throw it on lab and then you'd get like fossil chests or extra enchant. Like, that's kind of what I'm expecting. It's like, you'll get a lab, which is basically exactly the same. Maybe a Zaro will have an extra attack or something. And then there'll be specified chests at the end of it. I think one thing which is 100% certain, and this is one thing I'm very happy about, whatever they've done with lab, there'll be a very good Reddit post about it. Because, okay, best case scenario, the new lab is like crazy different. Then you're going to have loads of like Twitch clips of hardcore streamers going in blind, like in the middle of a race. Like, imagine everything before Izaro is exactly the same. You're like, oh, this is super easy. You get halfway through the Izaro fight, and then just pulls out like an AK-47 and just shoots you in the face. And you're like, where did that come from? And it's like, well, that's what happens if you do the blue lab. He gets an AK.
Turns out you weren't worthy.
Yeah. Or it'll be a situation where it's what I said, and it's just the chest are slightly different, and then people will complain, or the chest will give someone a mirror, and then it's like, dude, lab is so good now, it gives mirrors, you know.
Yeah, I can 100% of the time.
Still won't farm it probably, but
Really? To be honest, with these crafting options, like mirrors are kind of like, who cares? Just like
Yeah, who needs
craft
them?
it. Yeah.
I'll take yours if you want.
But how?
Maybe once
only
I
if I'm
get it.
making a dagger build or something.
I don't know. With how crazy everything is going to be in terms of crafting, I don't know why they couldn't do something cool with the lab stuff at the end. It's sure it could just be boxes, which would be very boring and very bland. But I also think that's just losing an opportunity, you know, to try things out. I mean, they're already saying that this is an experimental league, and a lot of the systems might not even make it to like the next league. So I mean, it's an opportunity.
No, I
to do
agree,
something.
and obviously I would much rather. But I think it's also one of the things we have to have realistic expectations. This league, they were working from home for a large part of its development, so you're not gonna be able to go too crazy with it. And
But it's not like doing things in terms of making X enchant more likely or having a different font at the end is not something I think will require tons of development hours.
I
It's more
know,
like
and
coming-
that's what I'm expecting. Like, I'm expecting simple stuff like that.
But that's not a minor thing though when it comes to, you know, enchants.
No, I think we agree. I'm saying I'm expecting there'll be like extra enchants, or the system is slightly different. What I'm saying is we're not going to have what Raiz was suggesting, where it's like you enter the lab and now everything's on fire and there are new enemies, there's like a new boss.
I know. I know.
Okay.
No,
Raiz just wants to
I
see
mean,
the
they could
lab
just have.
burn.
I mean, they have burning ground. They could reintroduce that into the lab. You know, easy.
Oh my God. I think it's much bigger than what everybody's thinking.
I think it might be.
Yeah,
I
maybe
hope
the
so.
rest did.
Yeah, I agree. I really hope it's really good. Maybe the new lab, they got rid of all the monsters and it's just traps. 100% traps. Start to finish.
Oh, what a... Yeah, maybe like a thing like that. The same way Monsters Treasure works, you can get one that's like, it doesn't have
Oh.
this, or it has this. I don't know. I don't
The
think that would be a
whole floor
solution
is
to
lava.
anything.
The
Yeah.
whole floor is lava. Play RF or don't do lab.
lab is
Crank old
lava.
Uber Lab.
Yes.
But
I like that they're
Doing the
souping up
cranking.
other league mechanic stuff though. Like lab by itself aside, you know, whatever they do with that, you know, super beachhead looked really cool. There was something
Oh, are they
else.
doing
There's
that?
another.
Yeah,
What was that?
a T6
Yeah, they're doing a T16 beachhead with 20 waves, and I think the T15 has like
Oh.
10, or is it 8? It's a much smaller number than 20.
Wow.
like
Nice.
5?
Uber Harbinger. Maybe they can go back to like the previous leagues and add the things that are missing, like
Yeah, like
the
the
Uber
boss
Blight
fight
encounter.
in Metamorph.
Yep.
What Ziggy just
Uber
said
Metamorph.
is he confirms the Harby language is going to come back in a
6.
meaningful way.
Oh,
And the Ubi Harby
I'm
is
positive.
going to finally fill in years of missing content and lore.
I know. It's been keeping me awake at night ever since Harbinger. Like
that's a
there's
long
supposed to
time.
be some secrets and stuff with the language to discover. But
You've lost a lot of sleep.
I don't know.
Are you okay?
Please
When
end
we
my
were
suffering.
when we were traveling around New Zealand, we were in separate rooms with Ziggy, but every now and then I would hear a violent scream in the middle of the night, and it was in fact Ziggy dreaming about Harbinger again. No.
Trying to speak the Harbinger language, but I didn't have the words to utter.
Amy just calmly walks out of the room, backs out.
She's used to it by now.
Beachhead has 6 extra Harbingers, it says. So it's going from 6 to 20 and from T15 to T16.
Why though? Like, why the fuck are they doing this? Like, don't get me wrong, it's probably fine, but like,
It's cool.
I
Harbinger
think
map.
that PoE in general needs another layer in game. And I think it's one of the reasons why many players felt that they could keep going in Delirium, because there was this layer of the fog being so good. You know, that there was always this extra thing. It wasn't that rewarding, but it was really fun to push yourself to see, oh, can I do 80? Can I do 100% Delirium? Can my build handle it? And you get overwhelmed. And so this like extra layer of difficulty, I think to have that layer on the majority of the content is something that we could really use. So I think that's what they're doing it. I hope that's why they're doing it. I hope they thought that far.
Oh, okay,
I mean, we still have Delirium orbs, right? But I do fully agree.
Yeah.
As much shit as I'm talking about Delirium on a usual basis as to the mob types and whatnot, that's my biggest issue. We've really never. I mean, I guess to a certain extent with Metamorph was the like, how much can I push myself? How big of a risk can I take by putting in the parts? But Delirium,
Wouldn't it be Delve?
they really nailed that one.
Isn't Delve the last how far can I push myself kind of league? It's a little more
but
tedious, I guess, and it doesn't show up in like, it's its own separate thing. It's its own separate. Like,
Right,
sandbox.
that's what I would. Yeah, that is just very separate. I guess Metamorph would be too. Well, I mean, I only see that as a good thing then. Honestly, the more of those aspects within as many of the end game variants as possible, the better. A boss, a delve, which is like a separate map, and then in the maps through Delirium. That's cool.
I like the implementation with Delirium orbs or Uber Harbinger maps, like Uber Beachhead, a lot more than I like the Delirium mechanic in maps, though, because those feel like a separate thing you're like opting into to make a special experience, and not a like layer of difficulty blanketed over everything that if you can't handle in the moment, like your build is trash and awful. Like, I don't know, like it leaves a lot more lenience for builds to grow and for players who are, you know, with less playtime or who are worse at the game to still feel good about the content they're doing, the build that they're playing.
Okay, what if they were to make Delirium, whenever it procs in a map, not a mirror, but instead a Delirium orb, like it's permanent? So, because a lot of people complained about how Delirium is timed and all that, and through that they didn't quite feel out the layers as much. What if it's just there? It's just fog.
I'm gonna veto that idea, because then you can't decide whether you want to do it or not. Like, if it's a mirror in the map, you can be like, I won't touch the mirror because this is a bad idea. This map's too much. Delirium orbs will still be there as an option to put on your map intentionally if you want.
I hate Delirium, so I would hate that for sure.
Just have Delirium orbs drop. Like that. That just solves it. Then you just you choose. Like if you just want to do a basic Deliriized map, you just put one orb on your map and you go.
That's what I was expecting was going to happen.
Actually.
I thought that was going to be the implementation. It's just like Delirium orbs just drop as a rare currency, or it'd be like
mirrors.
Kind of like, you know how they have the thing with like Atlas completion, the map bosses can drop extra things, like sometimes random uniques. I was thinking it'd be like that. Oh, bosses have a chance to drop Delirium orbs. How do we feel about
that's better? Oh my god.
Ooh, okay.
Good idea.
I feel like I would enjoy this more. I don't think it's objectively better. I feel like I would enjoy this more. Have bosses have a chance to drop a map that's already Delirium orb touched, and it's a random amount of Delirium.
That's cool.
So sometimes you get that crazy 80% map, sometimes you just get a 20%. I feel like a lot of people probably wouldn't enjoy that more because you want that level of control to choose what you do.
And also you'd have the thing where you're doing tier 16s every day and you're getting like tier 1. Or actually with the current map system, they wouldn't even drop at all because it'd be the wrong tier and then your Delirium map would just
what you do is you limit it the way that you do the Shaper and Elder Guardian map drops, I guess.
True,
So
yeah.
you wouldn't you'd only have them be T14 plus.
Yeah.
So that would mean you'd never have Delirious content in like T5 or 10 maps though.
I mean, do it
which is
like
not something they want.
do it like blighted maps, right? Like blighted maps have that cap at like if you're running red maps, you're not gonna drop like a tier 4 blighted map.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
if you can do it the same way,
Just have it matched here.
I find that cool.
There's one thing I would need for me to be on board with that. They need to fix how you how you search for maps and how where they're stashed.
Yeah.
It's all if you buy the stash tab, you
Right.
can't put blight maps in there. Now I can't put my fog maps in there. I have to place them other places, and then the real maps over here, and then I have like
And your Guardians.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass.
Yep.
So if we
People-
get that fixed, then yes, I would like them as Delirium maps. Otherwise,
Oh
no
my-
thank you.
I can't believe it. You make statements like this, the whole chat spams true, and then people go, "No, stash tabs are not pay to win." Like, no,
Of
you
course
don't.
they are.
You don't need a map tab. It's like,
What is
go
that
fuck
voice?
yourself.
Who are you impersonating there? Is that your Reddit voice?
Okay,
I
how
don't know.
about this, Niggy? Would this be better?
I'm straw manning.
What if
Nobody says that?
we had a pet that would sort for our blighted maps?
Sick.
Hey,
Yeah.
bring it back to last podcast.
Sure.
I
Yeah,
can get
then we
behind
then
that.
we can have like a foggy pet, and then every new
Occasion-
map they
no,
make,
but
you have to buy a new
occasionally.
pet.
Can
for
we
it.
name him?
Yes.
Can it
Occasionally
be
the
a
pet runs
humanoid that
away.
I just chain to my stash, like a slave that's
Oh,
forced to
God.
chain to the stash
God,
and
Ziggy.
keep sorting through the stash?
It's very PoE.
Can I add Siggy voice lines to it? So every time I get like a Delirium map, it goes moist.
G'day, master. Master, bring more treats to sort. Something like that.
Not that creepy.
I
Ziggy.
just want to say
prefer
that
the
the
moist.
opinions and thoughts of Ziggy do not represent the rest of the cast. Should we say this is like pro-slavery cast or anything?
I will say though, in general, like with adding and like all these features and revamping and rearranging them, I really think that there needs to be more of a concerted effort on GGT's part to make sure that it's, like considering the flow of someone's game and how, they manage their inventory and the space and how, things come together. It would be really nice, especially with like older league mechanics. Because it's so much more enjoyable to play the game when you feel like you kind of have some control over that part. So it's like, okay, I have all the things, but they're just a mess to get around.
I think one of the biggest things that helped a lot with that was when we had MP on Baeclast last time. He said that he started doing this thing where he would purposely like just save up all this like side content. And then he would just be like, I'm just going to have a day of just like blighted maps, or just have a day of just this, or a day of just that.
Sure.
And since I started doing that, it was a lot of fun. I did have the problem, though, that when he said that, I said, oh, that's a really good idea. So I was then ran into the issue that Niggy was talking about. I was dumping all my blind maps into my map tab. And it wasn't until like 2 weeks later, I was like, ah, shit. And I had to sort through every single individual thing to find them all. How do you feel about the actual implementation of Delirium, though? Because we kind of talked about how we'd like it to be, but the way they've implemented it is very unique. We've never seen a system like this before.
I'm tentatively optimistic. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. I think I'm going to like Delirium a lot more when I don't have to see it every single map. I felt the same way about Blight. I kind of hated Blight towards the end of Blight League, and then as soon as it was implemented with the 10% chance, it's like seeing a Blight is like, oh, cool, I'll do this other thing now. And having it be something you can actually target for higher tier investment. I hope it isn't like you put 8 levels of investment on this map and you're gonna get a Delirium. I hope it's not quite that common, because then it feels like a foregone conclusion. I still want it to feel special when it shows up.
I think people will end game strive to do exactly what you said. They're gonna stack things on things on things on things, and it's gonna be this.
And then it doesn't spawn and you cry.
I mean, over time it will, because you'll have like 100 attempts in a row, right? So you get like, maybe it's like 40% chance. So you work it out, and you're then gonna have 40 maps or 40 attempts of it and all that, and you're fine with that because you see, and it's just gonna be weird because so the main way to get scarabs, which is going to be the main way to make the spawn, is by getting simulacrums. So it's gonna be this like never-ending thing to where if you're not fully juicing, you feel like crap. That's my concern.
I mean, if you're fully juicing to that degree and you want to guarantee delirium, put a delirium orb on your map.
Yeah, but you need to get the delirium orb.
No, but you'll do that afterwards as you start accumulating. You'll just have this
Yeah,
on the
but
side. So
if we're talking about trade league,
itself.
in the context of fully juicing, I'm always assuming we're talking about in trade league. But maybe that's an incorrect assumption to make.
I mean, I agree with your point. I think we'll definitely run into the issue, though, where you'll, like, juice up 10, 15 maps, and then it doesn't proc. And then you run, like, a white map for something, and it procs, and you're just like, fuck me.
I think it's a non-issue. Like I think you'll just be doing like kind of regular, not non-super juiced content, and you'll have your mirrors showing up every so often, depending on how much you're generally investing into your maps, I guess, whether you tend to go hard on them or not. And then you'll have your delirium orbs for when you're juicing. No one's ever going to be like juicing a tier 18 map and then hoping that a mirror procs. They're always going to be putting delirium orbs on their maps. Yeah.
I do find it interesting to ask the question, what exactly is delineated as a mechanic and what is not? Like, does putting rogue exiles into the map make a mirror spawn more often? I mean, obviously, like Blight and Breach should, but like, what about these smaller things? If I throw some strong boxes in my map with the ambush mod on his map development,
this is the tag issue again.
Might be a thing.
The tag issue.
Like, what counts?
Everything that interacts with it, no. But then, like, Abyss, I thought Abyss was.
I mean,
supposed
basic
to,
monsters interact with it. Like,
no.
Like,
I mean, like, well, yeah, potentially. I mean, the higher the quantity of the map, potentially the higher the likeliness of it spawning. But like, Abyss is a weird one because delirium definitely pauses when you're in a breach, but I haven't seen it pause when you're in an abyss, and that would make sense to me. So I don't know. Yeah.
I believe, and this is something that I was told by my Twitch chat, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think the delirium pauses when an abyss is actually active and not when it's traveling.
I thought it was when it's moving, but I guess it's not. I guess it's
potentially have it backwards. Twitch chat.
I'm telling you right now, with 100% certainty, it won't pause when you're in the garden.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I don't. Do we even know if it affects the garden?
Pause.
I think that was Bex tweeted earlier that she was answering an FAQ.
Answering that.
Yeah, whether or not it affects your garden.
And does it? What did she say?
She was writing it in an FAQ.
Okay.
I don't think it's been released yet.
It was Bex being Bex. She didn't actually answer the question. She just posted.
She just posted. Yes.
Yeah.
On that topic, you guys were saying about the idea of I'm gonna bank all my content. I think this is a popular one too. I'm gonna like do all my delves later. I'm gonna stack this stuff up. I'm gonna do like a bunch of blighted maps all at once, like segmenting, because we have so much content now that segmenting your content out in ways that you enjoy makes a lot of sense. How do you guys feel about how Harvest looks for that? Because I don't think you can do that with Harvest, because you could bank a bunch of seeds and then plant them all at once, but then you got to go back to regular content to make sure that you're passing time, you're cycling time. And if you are engaging in it, then the minimum is about 5 cycles from looks of it for a tier 1 seed. So that's doing like 5 maps effectively. So you're going to be kind of interacting with this at least every 5 maps or so in kind of a rhythmic fashion.
Doesn't it depend pretty heavily on how much gardening space you have?
Yeah,
because like they said that plants don't degrade once they're ready to be harvested.
Yeah.
So you could, if you have a lot of space to work with, you could go until you filled up your whole garden, and maybe that's 100 maps worth of running. If the garden's big enough.
Or 2 minutes of going to Harbour Bridge,
and then harvest everything at once.
That's the thing I'm a bit worried about. So the way that the cycle works isn't based on running content, it's clicking on just seed chests.
Yes.
And because there aren't any that's why I think it would have been good if there was like a monster you killed or something. Because you can just run through a map or a zone, killing nothing. You just click the seed, and that's progressed it. So you could still be only running tier 16 maps, but then you just go to do some rando side content just to proc it. Because you just need to enter the zone, click the thing, and it's procced. So they'll 100% there'll be somewhere where it always spawns near the waypoint. So you just do that 5 times, and then next one.
I don't think that's a problem at all.
Why
Go ahead,
not?
Noogie.
No, but I don't think that's a problem because like the thing is like you have to put in the resources first. The problem with people running Harbor Bridge was that you gained the resources out of Harbor Bridge. It was an equivalent amount of return that you got from that zone. Like so, the way they solved like the Dell, for instance, was by making it scale with where you were. Like, if you try to sustain your soul fight in Harbor Bridge, I mean, good luck.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're gonna get some crappy seeds. So you're not gonna be able to refill your garden if you do that thing. You probably have to get the better seeds if you want to. There's also going to be eye levels on the seeds, right? So if you want to have quality seeds and you want to have quality
No, but that's
outcomes,
what I'm saying though is you wouldn't be in a situation you Harbor Bridge only. You'd be in a situation where it's like with the way people force Awakener. There was that whole thing with like running the low tier maps. I see a situation like that. You're still running your red maps. You're primarily red mapping, but when you're like, I want to harvest now, instead of running more red maps, you just go to a side thing, so you just proc it in like 30 seconds. So you're doing it just to check, just to cycle it. You're not doing it to collect
isn't that fine? I mean, why? Because you're gonna run out of resources pretty fast that way. So it's more like you speed this up by and gaining nothing else for your time, basically. You could be running maps and getting all of
it. How much it depends pretty heavily in terms of the impact it has on Trade League on how much value there is in rapidly rotating through seeds. If there's a lot of value to be generated by rapidly rotating through seeds, then I could see a situation where people do, party shenanigans where somebody like supplies seeds to someone who can do it really quickly and they rotate through them quickly and the other person kills the monsters that are generated by the seeds and you just churn out seed rewards really, really quickly. And, if you make more money doing that, then you invest into it by a significant margin, you can just keep it going infinitely. But as far as
like that.
That's the only concern I see is where trading comes in, to where you will have people literally just cornering the market because there's an upside there and they just keep generating this and they earn tons of currency early on, so they have like the monopoly, so they just keep setting the price and buying everything out, and that's where I see the only problem is.
I don't know if it can get to that point on softcore anymore where you can really set up a monopoly, because essentially you'd have to set up a monopoly on maps. Like maps would be the currency, right? Because that's the thing that you'd be rotating.
Well, beasts.
Yeah.
Think about beasts, because like it depends on like how rare are the seeds as well, and how will people trade them. So people, I'm pretty sure that people set up like they would buy out and said they would what is they called when they put out the beast and they're never selling it? I don't remember.
There's a lot of different terms.
Yeah. There might be a lot of seed price fixing. That kind of stuff might happen.
I wonder if seeds will really be the determining factor. Have they stated like how accessible the seeds will be? I mean, I guess they've talked about some encounters being rather rare. Which
I mean, how can it be? With how powerful the crafts are and getting 15 cycles, that's really fast.
Well, the way they were saying it though was that this is like the way for players to obtain gear. So in a way, they kind of need it to be sort of accessible.
Okay.
I think
like I'm strictly guessing.
No, like
obviously we don't quite know. I just really wonder about that.
With the crafting stuff. So how exactly does the crafting work? So what do the seeds give you? Do the seeds unlock the craft for you? Or do you need to like do the encounter to do the fight? So what I mean by that is, for example, if I was to do like a week of gardening, do I then have like 100 crafts unlocked for whenever I want? Or if I'm trying to craft my bow, do I have to like do a plant encounter every time? Because that could get really tedious. If it's like, I'm trying to make my weapon, but I've got to do all of this side content between each individual attempt. Because that could be really frustrating.
I think you touched on my biggest concern with the league actually is the fact that the crafting is time limited. So you bring in the harvest, and then you have to do your craft then and there. Otherwise, like, you can't bank it for later.
Yeah.
It's not like going to be stored in the bench forever, you know? Like, once you lose that instance, you lose that craft, or you condense your life force, and then that craft is gone. That's probably my biggest concern with the design of the league.
But the condensed life force, that is something that's maintained between harvests, right?
Yeah, but you can't use that for crafting. That's
I'm surprised.
for fertilizing.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that there's a system that allows for that without there being a system that allows for saving crafts for later. Since it's, evident that you can maintain, some kind of memory between the different harvests that you're doing of some resource.
I think they're I think they're expecting, because I was really concerned about that too, the fact that you can't maintain the crafts. I think they're expecting people to not like overcraft, where you do it until you hit your mod and then you stop, and anything that you have remaining, you do the thing with the getting the moistening or whatever.
It seems like a weird gameplay loop though, because if you don't retain the craft in any way, then what, do you just not do the harvest encounters because you don't have anything you want to craft then?
Yeah, you just leave the plant grown, I guess.
I don't like it either, but
because that just seems really weird, because it's like, because
It's,
think about it, you started mapping, you've planted stuff, right? You're like, okay, so I can go. You're like, well, actually, I don't want to do this encounter because I haven't got anything right now that I want to like slam. So then you just don't ever do the fight.
I mean, you don't use the seeds.
It's like those guff benches, but relevant.
Yeah.
Is that bad though?
That's a good comparison. Yeah.
But then you're just playing vanilla PoE for like a week until you want to do a craft session.
What?
No, it's more
you
like...
can't. You'll continuously be playing, because if you lose every time you run a map and you don't click a seed, you're losing out on a growth cycle.
Yeah, well,
that's a lot of time you lose if you don't engage with it.
Yeah,
but you kind of have to do it continuously.
What I'm saying is you'd just be planting and clicking on seeds. So all you'd be doing is plant and picking up effectively splinters.
There's a viewpoint that I saw expressed in chat that is worth mentioning here. I don't think it's like a perfect solution to it, but it is a way you can interact with it. Is once you come to learn the seeds and what they do, you just save the seeds that you know will give you a craft until you have something you want to craft on. But that still means you have to plant it and then run like 15 maps and then you get to do your craft, which is a little annoying. You can't like put in the effort beforehand and then have the craft ready for when you find something. You have to find something and then put in the effort.
And also, because you've got like limited gardening space, you'll be in a situation where, so let's say for example that I'm playing Corsicara, and I know that I want to craft a bow, so I'm in mind that I will eventually be crafting a bow. So whenever I get seed which give me a good craft for a CA bow, I plant it, but I'm like, I won't fight it until I actually start crafting, to save time so that I'm accumulating it and whatever. So then I'm in a situation where after a few days, I've then got like half a garden of just like potential crafts waiting to go. And then I'm limiting my space for the throwaway crafts or the throwaway rewards or whatever it is. And it feels like a much better system would be you plant the seed, you do the thing, and then you have unlocked that craft that you can use later. I don't see what is the downside to that.
It's like in Bestiary when we, I think halfway through the league or something, they changed it so that you had, instead of having a limited number of spaces in Bestiary, you had effectively an unlimited one. I think they just raised the cap like super high for the number of beasts you could have in a given pen. The solution could be just as simple. Just make the garden real big if they can do that. Like make the garden so large that it doesn't reasonably become an issue almost ever.
It does seem really big from what I've seen of the footage, so maybe that kind of is the solution. But yeah, this is like, I'm super hyped on the idea of this crafting league, and I like the way they're implementing the crafting and everything. But yeah, the fact that it is time limited is definitely like.
What is the actual?
I'm very
downside,
worried.
though?
A lot of people are.
Like, what would be wrong about saving the craft for later?
It might just be really difficult to implement for some reason we don't know as far as dev is concerned.
I mean, it's like bestiary, but with extra steps to get there. I mean, the extra steps for bestiary is actually capturing the beast. The extra steps here is the growing out the thing. I don't know. I don't see it as big of an issue. In a way, I kind of like it where it's like it's like a build up. You have the thing and you're working to like further improve it or make it into because I mean, I guess I should have looked more at the crafts, but isn't this something that like improves an already existing item rather than create one that is now going to be like the thing for your build?
We've only seen ones which interact with items. We haven't seen any which create items.
Yeah. So
I would say with meta crafting, you will try to aim for a certain set of outcomes, like a certain set of craft.
Sure.
So that will happen. I'm not sure if it's so. There's a lot of what kind of certain players will like it and certain players won't. If you always, it's the same. Like if you always want to min max everything and you're even afraid of using an exalt, you will hate this because you're so afraid of doing the wrong thing. Like I want to save it for later so I can get the right craft on the right thing. Where a lot of the power in this, since it is so powerful, could be granted because you kind of have to use it immediately. You know, there is this limiting factor within the system to kind of force the player to engage now.
There's no
saving
that
might be the constriction of it.
So
I will say though, having maybe, you know, a little pot you can store a certain plant you really hold dear could be nice. Maybe a few. You know, if you find something really cool and then you have to manage, I only have 3 or 5 slots. Maybe I have to use this now, but maybe keep that to a certain limit as well. Like if you do want to have some storage, then just maybe make it smaller. So you have to make a decision to use it to kind of force the issue on the player. Because I don't think it's necessarily bad to force the issue on a player sometimes. You know, it might feel uncomfortable, but at least, you know, there's, you know, some flow going there.
See, but all things considered, most definitely I can see this as being the biggest issue for the league. Honestly, the fact that you can't store the crafts, because it's a real Kadibra sort of flashback where it spawned a lot of annoyance. There were a lot of problems with that, and eventually it wasn't really changed, but the game was very different back then. I think this is most definitely going to be something that people are going to complain, and I'm sure people are going to make up all sorts of shit, like my map crashed, something like they're going to put in a new map. Maybe there's going to be some bug, like you know how with if you find sulfite in a map but your sulfite's full, you exit into your hideout, you go into the mine, you can only go back to your hideout once, because after you go back to your hideout and enter the map, you can't exit the map anymore because your hideout crashes and that loses you the map, so you have to pick up all of the sulfite. Like I expect something, because this is like a replicable bug, replicable bug that's been happening for like ever. Replicatable, yeah, that one. So like I can imagine there's going to be all sorts of issues like that, and then those people are going to post on Reddit, and then people who didn't have that experience are going to be like, oh yes, this happened to me too, while they're just trying to prevent themselves from it happening to them. It's I think I can see it being quite a clusterfuck.
How do we feel about this weird like stash thing? And I'm curious what you think of this, Ziggy, because I got the impression from when Chris spoke about it that they weren't sure about how that was going to work. But I feel like a lot of people have taken that as, oh, they've definitely got this stash tech.
Do you mean the seed storage?
You asked the question, will there be a stash in the garden? And Chris was kind of like, we'll have this thing where you can like pull items from your stash, but they stay in your stash. And then like you interact with it, and it all sounded very kind of like this is a very.
I have no freaking clue.
Yeah,
I have no
because clue. That system is this kind of system they stuck up before with like trading cross instance and stuff. This idea that you can like access items, like that's like very tech heavy. Like that's
the reason why they can't have the stash in there is because the stash would spawn in the map.
Yeah, I know they don't like it because then, in theory, you could just get all this extra loot and it would break up the importance of
It's such a
items.
non-issue.
It's bullshit. It's like it breaks up the importance of items in the inventory. It's like
No, but it creates this new meta of how you engage with the map. You know, you
Does
choose
it
it up, and then
really?
people will- yes, it does. Players will immediately then start using the stash tab in that little zone. They'll go and they'll put it in, and they'll without having to portal in and out. Because like portaling in itself is something that takes time. And so people will get accustomed to it. They won't have it next league. And they're like, oh, I really like that last league. And so this does have implications on how people play and how people perceive how the game should.
It would also probably
Yeah,
be
should
like
work.
a bot issue as well.
Could be exploitable as well.
Yeah.
You know, we
Yeah.
don't. I'm not really sure.
That's fair.
I definitely see why they're concerned about that and why it's like
Yeah.
very contentious whether or not they should have it in there and what you know
But-
because it's like people have found out all sorts of duping methods as well, right?
That's-
Maybe there's a new
yeah.
duping method if you have the stash in the map and you do something.
I mean, we have a stash in the Delve instance, which is a playable instance.
That was a big problem, though.
It
You
had
don't
a-
remember that? That was an issue
Yeah.
where people had a stash open while running Delve the whole way through.
Mhm.
You were literally running around with your stash open, and you could do that every time for Delve. So that was that was kind of an issue, yeah.
Well, then doesn't that just raise the question? Then what do we really need to access the garden in maps? Like, does accessing
by
the
that
garden
whole
in map, because that really surprised me, especially
Hmm.
since like so from my point of view, it's like you haven't added any monsters in the maps, so you're just running the maps to collect the seeds, and you don't fight the monsters straight away because you plant the seeds, and then you have like this cycling thing. I could
So-
understand that if their idea of the gameplay loop is you're constantly during every map planting, it could be quite tedious to be like run a map, waypoint to a different zone, plant, waypoint back, run a map. That would break the flow, I agree. But
The idea behind it is so that you can modify the garden with map mods.
well, they said they might add that. Because he said
Would
like
we like
we
that,
might
though?
he said
I
we
don't
might
know.
make quant affect
They
it.
also said that you can go to your garden from your hideout.
Yeah.
So if
But
there's
that wouldn't
any
be
craft that's what's that?
But that wouldn't affect the map mods.
That's what I'm saying. Like if there's any sort of craft or boss fight or fight in general that's at all difficult, you're just
always do
never
it from
going to
your
fight it with
hideout,
map mods.
Yes.
You'll just always go there vanilla.
Yeah, but then you're always gonna feel bad if you don't do your gardening in the map if the quantity affects it outside of those difficult encounters. So like 90% of the time you're gonna be like, I need to do it now. Which was a problem for a lot of other leagues, like with Delve or your Temple incursion. It's like you do this now or you're fucking up. It's not a good feeling.
Apparently, Beck said on Reddit that map mods will affect the garden.
Okay.
Oh, they've already clarified it?
Apparently.
I hate that.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Oh, no.
Because also, this is the question that I have with that. If I plant the seeds in a map with multi-proj, do those seeds store those map mods?
No, it's
No.
it's where you do the fight. I have to imagine it's where you do the fight
Yeah.
that matters.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people will, it's gonna be one thing people will experiment with. So that might, let's say that people might use it for XPing or just regular drops, and maybe not the big, depending on what it is you pop. You might have some not very important patches of gardening that's just there to kind of feed the big boy stuff. You run that in the map. And then whenever the boss fight comes where there isn't actually anything to gain from the map mods, it's the only thing you care about is, the metacraft or whatever it is you're gaining. Then you run that in the other one.
Just
I mean,
to
players can figure
just to
that
read
out.
the
I'm not-
quote real quick, since someone copy pasted it. Yes, if you enter the sacred grove inside a map, the monster will inherit your map mods. Edit. Note, this won't affect how much life force you gain from monsters. Edit 2. This is still up in the air, so they still haven't decided.
Right.
Okay, yeah. I don't think they're going to go for it. Because it breaks up. I was praising how much when Delve came out, it really broke up the game a lot. Like the only thing ever that we had previously was Incursion, where you needed to do the thing now. Otherwise, you were inefficient because everybody was running Incursion. And that already felt kind of weird, but it felt all right. But then with Delve, it was really, especially in its early stages, with how limited the sulfite cap was and how it wasn't a cap bound and all these sort of issues that it had, people felt like they had to do Delve. Every time they were doing Delve, they were having fun. Delve is great. But the fact that you just had to do it immediately just didn't feel good, man. I would hate for that to be the case here too.
Okay, so question. So the way that I'm reading it, if it doesn't affect the life force, and it will obviously, like, map mods won't make the craft better, you have to ask this question. If it doesn't affect the life source, and it doesn't affect the craft, is it worth giving, like, a pack of, like, a blue pack map mods? Because they might drop a little bit more currency. Because that's the only reward for it.
Probably not.
So then why would you ever roll your maps to be difficult? You'd always just do it white. Because if they spawn scary monsters, then
you're adding you're adding what's it called? You probably inherits the tier as well, right? Oh, I guess the tier is from the seed, the monster, so they will always be the same. It doesn't really matter. I guess. I mean, you can find more if you're starting from maps on SSF. You know, having more pack size and killing some patches might grant you an opportunity there.
I mean, in theory, if you've planted like 100 seeds and you've got this like fat garden, then yeah, it'd be worth it because of the amount of mobs that you'd be killing.
Yeah.
So then it could be quite meaningful. But if it's a situation of like you've just got like 4 or 5, then I don't see why you'd bother.
I think if people are min-maxing their meta crafts, people are not going to care for that. They're just going to like do it in the regular
if you're using it just for crafting, you don't give a shit.
That's even arguably an interesting edge case though. Like, are we okay with the guy who in trade buys up like 500 of the crappy lowest tier seeds for an alk each or something like that, and then throws them all into his garden if the garden is massive? Again, this is predicated on a bunch of ifs because we don't have much information in this league, and then basically rolls one map with like, you know, 1 map's worth of rolling materials and gets like 10 worth of monsters out of it. Because
and then you go to quarry really quick.
The map is just this little addendum, and the garden is the thing.
No.
This is the gameplay leap.
The garden is next level map juicing.
Yeah, so what you do is you collect all the shit
map.
seeds. Yeah, you collect all the shit seeds. You juice it up as much as you can. You then go to Harbour Bridge or Quarry to proc it really quickly. Then you go you run the super map.
Like, if you don't care about tier of rewards.
Yeah,
but you just care about it being monsters.
But they're going to limit it, right? Like, there's no way that you're going to be able to do that. Like, if you're going to be putting in level 90 seeds or whatever, then there's no way that you're going to be able to proc it with, like, anything below 85 or something like that. Like, they're just not going to allow that. There's no way. And that would be a solution to what we discussed earlier.
Yeah, maybe.
With running lower shit.
Would the garden be... I don't know of any place in the game where they have lower eye level monsters spawn in a higher eye level zone. I might be wrong on this. There's a lot of monsters that spawn in Path of Exile, but would the garden that's an extension of the map that it spawned in not necessarily have to spawn monsters at that level?
No.
So you take like bestiary?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And PvP and they are not PvP.
Do we know how many seed chests are going to be in each map? Is it 1?
That's the assumption, but that's just an assumption.
Probably
because it only takes 5 cycles to proc it. So even that, it'd be like, so you just run, say you just run 5 reds, right? Map sustain is infinite. Like, no one's running out of reds. So basically, it's like, so you just run 5 reds, and then you do this, like, one insanely juiced, like, 100% filled garden. With just, like, everything, like, MP on, like, minus frames. And then...
Not anymore. Vulcan,
well, yeah, now he's got 10 frames for Vulcan. And then...
Awesome.
Yeah, that seems like that could be like kind of lame and like party play where you just got people. It's like the Dell feeding thing. You're just like feeding a player like this like fat fuck off garden. Obviously, that's very niche, but
It is, though. You did mention Sulfide because it's struck me as really weird when you mentioned it that we just go inside of a map and we pick up the seeds and virtually nothing happens. But then that's pretty much exactly like Sulfide, right?
but
Because
it's
you can
more
talk to Nico.
it's more tedious than sulfite. Though this is the way I explained it
So-
to chat because with sulfite, it's sulfite and you click it. Imagine now if there was sulfite, you got a pickaxe, you broke the sulfite into chunks, and you picked up the splinters because you have to pick up the seeds.
You click Sulfide 3 times, and this you click 4 times because you have to click on the thing, and then you pick up the maximum of. Well, I expect it to be a
Well-
maximum of 3 seeds. If it's more, then fuck off.
Raiz, congratulations, you dropped 30 blueberry seeds in sacks of 1.
No, see, I had such a vivid reaction to when I saw the 3 of 3 drop, and I was just like, no. And everybody was like, why is Raiz overreacting so much? It's because I'm fucking scared, okay? I am terrified of more splinters, so I don't think they're doing it. There's just no way. That man was in an armory, and we all know it was 4 watchstones, and that's why he dropped 3 of them, okay?
Slide back just a minute to the previous
Please.
topic about the stacking seeds and getting a super map. The way that you can look at it sort of is like you're taking your league mechanic content and you're putting it all off to do it all at once. So it's like if we were talking about breach instead as the mechanic that's being added, and instead of doing the breach when you find it, you can pick it up and then bring it to your map 3 maps later and put all of the breaches in that one map 3 or 4 maps later. That's essentially what you'd be able to do here with the if you have a large enough garden that you can get like 50 seeds planted in it and do them all at once in one super invested map.
Could you sea witches because it inherits map mods? Would that work?
No.
I mean, that doesn't cause like legion monsters to become sea
True.
witches.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
That would be very funny if it did.
That would be cool.
I'd love to see the Templar
Nah,
General, the giant
come
sea
on.
witch.
I could see people doing like a super juiced up white map, popping them in there due to the fact that map mods are different on the different tiers. And then you would run your super juiced garden with all the high level monsters in there with like tons of
man.
pack size.
Like beyond
There was-
shit.
A
Rarity.
bit of an aside, there was a fun little bug for a little bit where Zana didn't understand the new tiering systems of maps. So when she gave you a map that was like a T15, it would have white tier map mods on it.
Ah, yeah, it's
Hmm.
true.
Didn't even notice that.
Before we move on to the timeless duel thing, because I imagine that's going to be a huge topic of discussion, is there
Oh,
anything else you want to talk about this like weird garden metagaming shit?
I think it'll be all right.
I think it's gonna be
Are
great.
you guys keen on the crafting types that they've shown rather than because we haven't seen anything that's like, oh, here's new mods you put on your items. It's just like very, very powerful fossil style essence meta crafting stuff. You keen on that?
I'm curious what you guys think. I personally don't like the whole, oh, let's add a crazy new mod every time. I think it's fine to just have access to new, especially when it's just like, you saw explodey maces, now explodey chests, now explodey hats. Like, fuck that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's not what this is now, right? So you like
Well, we
it.
don't know. There might be like an add a specific mod.
Considering we
not.
haven't
I
seen
don't
any of
think
that.
that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We haven't seen a single mod that's like that.
This to me seems more like we have more control over creating crazy stuff with the mods we already have. Like way more agency over getting 3 to 4 influence mods on there rather than just the 1 or 2.
Yeah,
I think
Insane.
I think that for sure, but also for it to be for you to be able to personalize gear a lot more. Like you're playing a lightning character and you drop a fire shield. Now you can switch that over to whatever you're using, right?
Love
So there's quite a bit of that.
I'm still stuck on the fucking gardening stuff. So, like,
Go for it.
if you're in a party, do your party members' gardens tick?
Probably
because then you
not.
could have everybody
Oh,
plant
probably,
their
yeah.
seeds like offset by one, and then you all run a bunch to get all of your gardens grown, and then you get to run 6 people's gardens, like massive amounts of seeds, all super invested, all in a row, and you have like 4 hours of juice content.
I mean, even if they don't cycle in groups, I still imagine rotas will happen, where it's just you get everyone just plants, then you just go around the group.
Right.
It's probably going to be like Delve, where if you play in a group, then one guy's thing is going to be massive and everyone else is going to be stuck at level 1.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've always
it's
hated
sad,
that.
but
I've always
that's how it
hated
can
that
be.
system, and I really hated the whole Atlas progression and all this weird shit. And I don't like that stuff.
PoE has never exactly been group friendly.
I mean, it
No.
was back in the day. You had to play in groups. I remember being the Pentacurse bitch, and then you had 4 guys. Like my EQ, my EK hit so hard. Look at this, like 4 damage.
I could kill a rare crap.
And then there's a guy in the back
You felt personally attacked
with
so you
the
left.
Cull MF. Like woohoo.
Oh, God.
One thing that I saw, and I have a really bad distaste for actually, that flask mod. It was increased duration.
That's a weird one, right?
-1 per use. That to me seems like a big mistake. The way that because some people said something, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't work like this. Someone said, "Oh no, Tarke, the way that will work is it will reset every time you leave a map." I'm like, no, there's no way it will work like that. The way I see it is it's just a temporary buff that eventually runs out, and then you need to craft a new one.
Like the one they showed us had a 70% mod or something. 70%.
It was 78%
Like that's
increased
not going to
duration.
reset.
Yeah,
That's not
Wait,
resetting
you-
a map. You don't use a flask 78 times in a map.
Do you have like a? Can you show me this? I haven't seen it.
It's on the announcement page. It was a Quicksilver flask. It didn't add a mod. It was it was its own special thing, and it was 78% increased duration, loses 1%. Sorry, 78% loses 1% per use. So it was basically like a temporary glass blowers.
If it's temporary, I hate it.
I hate it as well because I can see one of two. I can see one of two situations. Either situation 1, it's so meaningless, why bother implementing it? Situation 2, you have people feeling like they have to do micromanage their flasks.
I think it's going to be situation 1. I hope it's going to be situation 1.
I hate extremes in PoE.
Why have they made it? Who is happy? Someone said, Tarke, it's great because you'll have your special flask set for bossing. And my response to that was, would you like it if they made blacksmith whetstones changed? So now you can whetstone your weapons up to 78%, but every time you swing your weapon, you lose 1%. No, that would be fucking awful.
That's different.
If you could glass blower it up, it would be fine. You would just have to reapply it.
It's like
This isn't intended to map with. You guys are treating it like it's intended to map with. It's a duration mod. Obviously, you're supposed to use it on bosses.
Yeah,
but
nobody's gonna map with this thing.
I mean, we don't know what other ones there are. I'm sure there'll be one which is increased effect or something. There's no way that they would make just one mod infecting flasks.
I don't think it would be effect though.
Maybe effect would be
duration makes sense for the context of bossing. I think I hate extremes in PoE. I think the new chess piece, fuck that. Okay, that's gonna be a problem real soon. I hate it. But then this flask stuff makes a lot more sense to me.
But is it something you want to see in PoE? To me, it just seems like a mistake.
No, I personally dislike it, but I don't think it's hurtful for the game.
I don't think it's hurtful either, but I think at best it's harmless. It doesn't add things.
Adding to the pool of flasks, because fuck that.
No, it was its own separate
It's like an enchant.
Yeah,
it's an enchant.
Oh, so it's like an enchant from the.
Yeah.
You know what's gonna be funny though? After it gets down to 0%, the mod's gonna stay there, and it's just gonna say 0% increased duration, and you're just gonna have that mod in your flask forever.
Interesting.
Wait, it'll start going negative, you reckon?
Yep.
No, you get
It
it to
might.
it probably starts at 100%. You get it to 80%, and you swap it out. It's for people that kill Awakener and shit. That's how I see it, right? No ads. It just makes sense to me. I don't think it's good, but it makes sense.
I thought it was like a mod on the first game.
No, it's an enchant.
Like,
Imagine auging that. You're just like,
okay.
No. Basically, it's gonna be. It's probably one of the rewards of the new labs, almost definitely.
Oh,
being able to enchant flasks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. That's really dangerous. I see why they designed it, because if you want to add flask enchantment, adding any amount of significant permanent power to a system that already gets lambasted quite frequently for being, you know, one of the core issues of Path of Exile's design that's lingering from the earlier days. Yeah, it's a dangerous thing to toy with, adding another layer of power to flasks.
Raiz, this is your lab rework, by the way. Flask enchants, baby.
fuck off. No.
Yeah.
No, you can enchant flasks. Woo!
Yeah.
Oh no. I hate it already.
It's also one of those situations where it's like, because of the way it works, you'll have the situation you're like, oh shit, I forgot to change my flask after the boss and I've wasted my charges on a map. Or it just, like, yes, it might be cool that you could use it in the Cirrus fight, but it fucks with it. And then also from a design point of view, it then fucks how you design bosses and flasks. So what, do you now design your bosses around everyone having fully enchanted flasks or not? And then it fucks up flask sustain. And they design around
you already
flask
switch
sustain.
your flasks for bosses anyway, right? Like, realistically, if you're playing properly, you switch your flask for bosses.
Yeah, no, I know, but you're not getting my point right. So my point is normally what they used to do is they would control the amount of charges players had by having ad waves. Then they did Cirrus, which is like, okay, well, no, now that we don't have ads, now it's just like, depends on the fight. So now when they go to design the new boss, if this is a system that stays around, do you design the bosses around, well, everyone's got an enchanted set of flasks, so they're going to have an
I get what you're
X
saying,
uses,
but
or
it's not a factor. Come on,
it just
they're not gonna be like, we're gonna balance this. They
no,
don't.
like,
fucking,
no, but like
this is ZiggyD we're
why
talking about.
fucking-
They don't fucking do balance, Tarke.
Why
Okay.
fucking add it then? It's just it
Okay.
seems it
Tarke.
genuinely seems like, I'll just say this and I'll shut up for like half an hour.
Okay.
It genuinely seems like someone was like, we need to make this crafting system cool. What can we add? And some fucking dickhead, and I'm sorry if you're watching this, but fuck you, was like, what if we enchant flasks? And like, yeah, fuck it.
Oh, come on. It's like saying you have to balance mapping around a headhunter. It doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
No,
I mean,
but
since-
it's just not fun.
okay.
It doesn't change there's no thought process. If you have
Okay.
access to it, you use it. If you don't have access, you don't use it.
No, the
decision
player
making.
who knows he can blast through Awakener isn't going to give a fuck and replace his thing. But the player who really cares about doing Awakener for the first time is really going to give a fuck about this and is going to put an extra effort and have an extra layer of something that they can do to prepare for the fight. I find that to be
I'd rather.
understandable.
I personally would much rather have.
Sorry, Noogie.
I would much rather have less power be granted here by whatever the system is, flask enchanting, or if it's some other kind of specific crafting that isn't technically enchanting, without the durability system, because I don't think that the durability system adds anything itself. I'm not saying that flasks can't be further modified for a bossing situation. Like, you could do it so that this flask has an enchant that makes it so when there's when there's two or fewer or one unique enemy nearby, it gets this extra mod. So then it doesn't do anything while you're mapping, but it gives you something in the Cyrus fight. Like, if that's the design space you're trying to fill, if that's what you're trying to do, that's a much cleaner and much less annoying way to go about it. 10%
agree.
increased duration while there's one unique enemy nearby. There you go. That's a bossing flask mod. If that's what you're trying to design. Just fuck durability is my stance, basically.
I'm letting Noogie talk.
Okay, I feel like we're like going out on a tangent here where we're like putting way too much emphasis what a flask means. You can't design everything. You can't design a boss fight around everything in PoE. It's like trying to design every boss fight around Pathfinder, around a certain set of flash uniques, around ED, around Stormbrand, and then around Ground Slam. Dude, they design boss fights like the way they do it. I mean, certain fights have certain mechanics, and certain builds can take advantage of it. The fact that a flask can like last longer, I mean, you can't. okay.
It's minor.
So
You're
we
right.
have-
It's ultimately
It is.
and it's only on non-unique flasks, so it gives you like some extra space for these.
How do you know it's
Or
only
maybe
on
it's
non-unique
literally
flasks? If
I
it's
don't
an
know. I
enchant,
don't know.
and
I
also
think-
just
Strike
finally,
that doesn't make sense.
just finally, flasks are a universal factor across all builds. Yes, some builds can cheese stuff, but that's how they like balance stuff like max res.
No, but like belt mods can be a universal factor. You know, I mean, you
Or
decide.
block.
Yeah, but like flasks have always. Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be overpowered. I mostly agree with the fact it's annoying. I think it's an annoying system, and I don't think it benefits from anything.
The more you talk about it, the more I fucking love it.
like fundamentally
the
this
fact that
isn't
there's like investment, there's a cost to it. There's something that you have to do over and over, and it's not just, oh, I guess I'm gonna give 4 fragments and that's it. Like, this is such a minor thing, but yet it's something that pushes you a little bit more for that replayable content. I don't know, it's growing on me. More durability. Hell yeah.
Why does
Yeah.
durability have to be tied to that little extra bit of investment?
Wait, what bit of
I
investment?
don't know. Maybe I've lost track of Raiz's point here.
No, I'm thinking, because I'm thinking back in Diablo 3 days, okay, when they had that durability patch, and when people were doing content that they weren't supposed to, they were getting heavily punished, and they got fucked out a whole lot of gold, and then people were complaining, man, I can't do the same content I could before because it cost me too much gold. Yeah, bitch, you're doing content that you're not supposed to be doing. That's why I like durability, because if you add it to something like this, if you're doing content that your character isn't ready for, if you're using 6 portals and you have to enter 3 fragments, you fucked up, dog. You fucked up big time. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Fundamentally, I agree with you that we are getting like way blown up to a much bigger point
this
here.
really doesn't matter that much.
But like fundamentally, I agree with you here that there needs to be costs associated with this kind of higher level content, so that people don't just throw themselves at it and then complain when they can't beat it. But like, why does it have to be durability? Durability sucks.
Look,
Durability is an
basically-
old,
I think there
outdated way of
probably are
accomplishing
better
that.
ways to do it.
Okay.
On, like,
Whoever
Sexton.
loses this discussion is getting permanently kicked from this podcast, because this is the most important thing we have ever done.
Tarke, but we need you. We need you. Who's gonna run the show?
We have never discussed anything as important ever. What are you saying? I'm sorry, Nicky.
No, I mean, we have durability in many ways in PoE already. On
it's
things
fair.
we consume, to give us buffs in various ways. It's just all of a sudden it's on our items, and then we're like, oh no, it's crazy. What is this? It's
Yeah,
like,
you draw lines at certain places
love
because
it.
those lines are important.
I thought Noogie had me in the first half, dude. I thought you're gonna be like, yeah, fuck durability. My man, I love it.
I kind of like durability. It's like,
Right?
oh,
The more we talk about it, the better it is.
What's the next topic, Tarke?
Before we move on, Ziggy, I just want to hear your input, because you've had a good, enjoyable time with this.
I just can't believe you guys are so animated over this plus durability fucking throwaway mod idea that some random devs like. It was like some random thing we can throw in. It'll make like no difference to the game. And you guys
I
had the
feel
most
like-
heated discussion over this, more so than any other thing that's ever been like added to the game. Like we're just doing like, this whole new league and crafting system. We're changing the lab. You guys are like fucking plus durability.
We're
mod.
at a turning
put a
point,
number on it.
Ziggy. This will have long-standing effects on Path of Exile. This is a turning point. I'm telling you.
don't
It's not going
understand.
away.
The
game will never be the same.
Okay.
I'm quitting.
Okay. I'm gonna go Ronald Reagan. What if flasks are the marijuana of durability? This is This is like the starter drug. They do this. They make this one change, Ziggy, and then everything's fucked.
I
They
do
start
finally understand that Pepe
injecting-
Lapa mode.
I want to know what like the further steps in the slippery slope are on this comparison you're making here. Like if flask durability mods are the marijuana, what's the cocaine?
Headhunters, the crack.
but you've already lost the argument, because we all know that the war on drugs is a complete sham. So it's
The
like,
war on drugs is a complete sham.
So why were you even trying it that way?
I was
Listen.
making a joke. Fuck Ronald Reagan, just to put that out there. So
No,
the next
no,
topic.
that argument.
Um,
I think you were all lost because you got so engaged in that discussion. I think I was the only winner of
The
that
only,
argument.
the only thing that I interjected where I was like really vehemently where I disagreed was the notion that because you added this like one element that they had to like design bosses around this as if PoE isn't complex already. It's like, oh, PoE is this like finely tuned thing. You add this in and like everything is like destroyed. Dude, they add these in all the time and they don't.
It's so funny.
They design bosses.
Oh god.
The next podcast is just Ziggy. Just so everyone is aware. Ziggy is now the one-man
just me
show.
Laughing.
Yeah.
Just me laughing like that on loop.
I actually had on the flower, on the garden thing, I had like a point I really want to not forget. So one thing that worries me with the whole flower thing is we don't know how much information a seed will give us in terms of what the outcome will be, right?
You
So
hover over it and it says, isn't that what Chris said?
and
Ziggy?
you
It tells you what it needs to grow. We know that for sure, at least.
Oh.
It
So,
says
like,
what it's gonna grow into, no?
I don't remember. Ziggy, do you?
It totally does. There's like a mod at the very bottom, and it's like this will do a physical thing.
yeah, but
Yeah,
you
it
don't
says
know
all those things.
let's say the mod pool is large of the things it can roll into, like it's like 20
Sure.
outcomes the seed can give you. And it gives you something really good, but you have no use for it. And you need to use it now. What do you do? That's like my nightmare scenario. Is that I get a really good outcome that is completely wasted if I can't keep it.
Yep.
So you're saying the seed doesn't tell you you're going to get an annul that targets physical items. Instead, the seed tells you, I'm going to give you an annul. And then you don't know which kind.
And you get an
what-
exalted orb. Yeah.
What it says is like contains a physical craft or grants a physical craft, and then it could be any of those.
Oh,
So I think Nugi's point's like my primary concern, I guess, with it.
Yep.
I like his earlier comments though that maybe it's so that you actually use it rather than trying to hoard it because you can't store it. But yeah, there's going to be the problem is with Trade League. I think for solo self now it's going to be fine because you'll just be like, oh, I got this crazy craft, but I don't have anything good to use it on right now. So I'll slap it on something random. That's cool. It's still fun. But for trade, you're going to be like, now I got to go buy an item that needs a physical exalt. So you're going to try and hold that instance open and go trade and look for the perfect item to use that physical exalt on so you don't waste it.
Ziggy, have you ever had a Leo exalt and nothing to exalt? That shit feels so bad in SSF. It
Or
is
a talisman
horrendous. It is a horrifying experience, and I remember every single one. I don't know if I agree with that.
No, you get a Neo Exalt every time.
Yeah, but here
It's
you don't.
100% guaranteed.
Here
so
you
that's
don't.
how it works. Yeah, here you don't. Yeah, you don't. Like now you can't know that you're gonna get that. It's like Leo randomly popping up in your map and saying, "Hey, dude, I would like an exalt." Now that would suck, right?
Yeah.
No, that would be great. Now, if it would be like something else, like a null.
Maybe it would be great.
I mean, once the plant grows and it's like bloomed, so to speak, then you'll see what it's going to give you. And so you can not fight the monsters and you can keep the plant grown in your garden. No, you have to fight the monsters before you know what craft you get.
Yeah, the specific craft will only be.
Oh, that's fucking
They should
terrible.
move it back one step. They should have the
It's
plant
bad.
tell you what it's going to give
That's
you after
really
it's
bad.
grown. Not after you fight the monsters. Like just move it back one step. You don't have to have the seed tell you what it's going to give you. Just have the plant when it's grown tell you what it's going to give you.
Then
I'm
that would
telling
be
you,
like
it's going to be a big problem.
selling an ID
Say again?
uniques where they've already revealed what is going to be the roles on it. You remember that shit? When people go like ID the unique and then or like had a way of like read onlying the unique and then selling it on ID.
Then we need to be able to store the crafts. Because if it's a situation, because okay, we've already seen like 30 crafts or something. There's not going to be like millions of seeds. There might be, I don't know, 50 at most. I can't imagine them doing more than that. So you're going to feel really fucking bad if you do the fight and then it's like remove an influence, add a new one, and you're like, well, I haven't got an influence item right now, so this is just there's nothing I can do. Because there's going to be a lot of things like that, or like the get a bunch of blight oils and turn it into something else. Well, you don't actually get blight oils for a while. Like there'll be a lot of like first week, like it will be a non-issue towards the end of the league or once you're invested. But there'll be a lot of things that you're going to get on like your first character, and it's just like,
Yep. What you're saying, 100%. I fully agree. I think it's going to be the biggest dilemma of the league. I hope they look into it before. I'm surprised that it's not a bigger concern. I feel like GG are so smart, and yet sometimes they would overlook something like this. But at the same time, it's just it's like Kadira on steroids. I don't know. The fact that they would like not address it is very surprising to me. But we still have time. I think, yeah, with enough feedback, we're gonna get there. It's just a difficult thing to address because we don't have all the information as to fully how it works.
It's
We
also
think we know, but maybe we don't.
It's also the kind of thing that you can't even test that well, even in like an alpha-like scenario, because it's a situation of you with that that's a case of you need a big player base to test it and play it. It's not really a case of like, oh, we got like 100 people or 20 people or whatever, and they were like, it felt a bit bad on some low tier seeds. You know what I mean?
You always have shit to use it on. Yeah, sorry. You go.
I don't know if this is a bad take, but I'm kind of the idea that they should start with it being shittier first and then make it stronger later. So they, I think that this is an intentional decision, right? Like they want us to use suboptimal craft at the times where maybe it doesn't make the most sense, so that we're actually using it. But maybe that ends up being like, whoa, no one expected it, but that's really sick, and everyone loves crafting now, and it's been really good for the game. But maybe not, and everyone's like, we want to be able to store the crafts. So then like a week in or 2 weeks in, they implement that, like the ability he can store 5 crafts for later. Maybe they implement that later. I would rather them implement it later than initially for this sort of decision. It's like the idea of, if you were going to redesign PoE from the start, would you want to just immediately make trading like it is now, or would you want to start with some sort of different trading system that's less powerful to see what the game would be like, and then you can always change it later?
Yeah.
See, I worry that they've done that like way too many times in way too many leagues where they're like, this league is amazing. 2 weeks in, it's like, we can just avoid that initial period of this really doesn't make sense. Why did you do it this way? For once, that would be amazing, because we really do get that every single league.
You do also need to keep in mind that this league's entire reward structure is the crafting. So if the crafting is balked for 2 weeks, then the reward structure is balked.
Well,
and even if it's fun, people like rewards. So if the rewards isn't good, they'll say it's a shit league. Look at Delirium. The amount of people like, oh, Delirium's dog shit. As soon as it became really rewarding, Delirium is amazing. You know.
But the thing is, like, it'll filter players out in a very bad way also, I think, because this isn't the sort of feedback that will come from all the players at the same time, because different players not only play at a different pace, but they reach certain breakpoints. This will only start feeling bad once you reach a point where you need specific stuff. So you need an annul, but you get an exalted orb, and you can't exalt anything anymore. That's not going to feel bad initially. But when you start getting to that point with your character, and you're going to be forced into doing those trades that you weren't exactly looking to do at that time, that's when it really hits. And by the time the feedback comes in at a wave where the community fully agrees, like, yeah, this is not the way to do it, I think many people are just going to be gone because their voices won't be heard. And those are going to be the people that are going to be most dedicated.
And it's also, sorry, I'll say this and I will stop for a bit. It's also the bestiary problem, because we saw this because the crafts didn't work.
Yes.
And they just didn't work for the first like couple of days or something. And you had people who then continued to play but never went to do the crafting because it didn't work when they first went to use it. So someone might not quit the game. They might keep playing the league, but they never interact with that system. And because the system is so unintrusive, you could very easily say, well, I just won't interact with it.
And a more specific point that, you know, might not garner the most sympathy, but if you have seeds that aren't deterministic, so a seed can give you, say, one of 5 results that are all physical based, so it'll either like exalt a physical mod or annul a physical mod or turn a fire mod into a physical mod, that sort of thing. These are all really powerful effects. That seed's probably pretty rare, so it's probably worth a bunch in a trade league. And probably when someone wants it, they want it for one of the specific 5 purposes. If that person wants it for annul a physical mod, they could buy like 10 of these probably expensive seeds and grow them all and hope to get the right one. Or they could go to someone who says, oh, hey, I have that mod and I'll do it for you. And then that person steals their item and leaves. So this opens more opportunities.
Oh,
By
no.
making it more obscure, you open more opportunities for exactly what Chris said in your talk. He didn't like about this mechanic, the possibility for people to scam through it. When I personally don't see much value added by not just having the seed tell you what it will do.
I think the important, so what they want to do with the whole system is they want to go away from giving us loot explosions and giving us real item progressions that we have. We get fewer, like very few options, but they're like meaningful to our character. So it is important that it lives up to that, expectation of we will actually get something out of this, and they will actually give us character progression through engaging with it. It's very important that we don't get that we're not let down multiple times in a row.
So the idea that Octavian came up with when we were doing a whole thing for like what the reward structure was is kind of like there'd be like this machine or something that once you've grown the siege, you've killed the monster, you'd like kind of like throw it into it, and then you get out like a special essence, I think is what we called it early on. And that was our idea, is like you'd do the thing, you do the fight, you get the special essence, and you get the item, and you pop it on. And I can see why they're trying to avoid a situation of what if you're storing crafts, you might end up with like this bestiary problem. You've just got this like massive scrolling list with like hundreds, like times 100 or times 80 or times this. And if it's a thing where like you get an item out of the end of it, then maybe it then goes crazy on item cluster, and they're trying to avoid it. So I can see why they're like, okay, you get this craft, it's limited to this thing, it's locked, it's time-based. I can see the appeal of it, but I'm not sure what the real benefits are, other than the fact that it forces players to make a decision, but it could also just force players, and a few people have already said this in chat, to be like, this already seems too confusing, I'm just going to sell my seeds.
Forces players to quit the game. Yeah, that's my concern. Do you guys all, I feel like you do, but do you guys all agree that maybe it would be a good idea for them to have the ability to store, like, I don't know, several crafts? So you can be like, okay, this specific craft is a banger, I need to store this. Maybe it's like something you could progress on, like unlock more slots for, but I don't know, 3 or something.
It would help.
I think if they don't have the answer already in the office, if they're questioning whether or not the system works, they should definitely, I feel it's too late, like 5 days in, to say, oh shit, we're gonna do something in a week.
I am concerned now for people quitting and not engaging in the crafting. I want people to engage in the crafting, and I do like what Noogie said earlier about like the time sensitive nature of it could encourage you to use the crafts and get engaged in it, instead of trying to just be like, I'm never going to use these crafts. But maybe you do need the ability to store a couple.
It's just the PoE's crafting is it's so complex. So it's hard to get it right for everyone.
Like something that's really, really good and extremely powerful for one player is very likely to be completely irrelevant for half of the other players in the game. Especially if we're talking about a system that is so targeted and specific as this. Like, most of your players in your game for their build turn a fire mod into a cold mod won't matter at all. Like most of the builds in the game, that doesn't do anything. But there's like 10% of them where it's amazing.
I mean, there are so many crafting scenarios where that would be like ridiculous. You're trying to craft a weapon and you just hit the wrong mod, and you're like, dude, this would be so perfect. What if they did something similar to what they had with like sealing prophecies, where you could like seal a craft at the cost of life force, so that way it still promotes players using them right away, but you can store them at a cost?
I think there should be a limit.
A limit though, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think you wanna. I personally like the idea that you're kind of encouraged to engage with it now. Like there is some push. But I think having some sort of buffer to where you could fill your buffer, and now you have to make a decision.
I think
it's like 5 items. Okay, I've stored that. Okay, now I can either replace, use, or sell or whatever.
Yeah, I think if there's no leniency of that sort, then the problem is just going to sort of back up to the seed level, if that makes sense. And like Tarke said, players will just either hoard or sell their seeds. Like they just won't plant until they know they have something they need to interact with. And then people are going to plant and they're going to have to run like 15 maps before they can do their craft, and that's going to tire them out of the content.
See, but it's so easy to like be turned off by PoE's crafting also. Like if you just throw 10 chaos on an item, the likeliness of the item actually being something that you're going to be happy with is very low. So even though 10 chaos doesn't really matter a whole lot, a player will come out of that exchange thinking, I just wasted shit. Why would I ever do this again? And if this system falls into the same thing from the beginning by having this sort of design flaw, that'd be yeah, I think that would have very negative impact.
It could also be kind of weird if, so using your 10 chaos story, but now between every single chaos you've got to fight like a pack of potentially quite dangerous monsters. So it's kind of like not only is there the fact you've thrown away currency, you've also used time. So it's kind of like, you know, it's like that feeling when you go to do your Einhar and you spend like 10 minutes clearing it all out and then you get jack shit and you're like, oh, two
Right.
alchemies, that was fun. That could maybe be an issue where it's like,
I will interject once again, as I will do every time this comes up. Please give us more bestiary recipes, more interesting ones, please. Like there's a handful of cool ones. I'm not going to say
too
it's
late.
completely
It's
vapid,
dead.
but please, like a few more.
You get seeds and plants instead.
Okay,
What do you get?
sure.
Be back.
Listen, they reworked Incursion and that went well, so I'm sure they can do the same thing with Bestiary, right?
Spicy.
okay, we still have the like skills and timeless jewel stuff to talk about. Is there anything anyone wants to say before we move on to timeless jewels?
Nah, we've beat down on it pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
I think we should go back to the flask.
I also just on that, if the person who did design the flask thing is actually watching this, I was like, this Tarke guy seems like a really, oh, this guy's a dick. I don't actually mean you any ill harm. I just hate the system. I fundamentally disagree with you, but I'm sure you're a lovely human being. So yeah, with the timeless jewel thing, so it's been quite a big situation if you've somehow missed it. A bunch of the keynodes from timeless jewels are being added to the tree, and they've confirmed they'll be replacing them with new stuff on the timeless jewels. One thing which is kind of cool about this and kind of lame is it opens up loads of crazy new build possibilities for like SSF and League starters, but from a balancing point of view, F Trickster and Glancing Blows when it comes to CI, because that's pretty
Yeah, Glancing Blows is... I don't know. I guess I shouldn't say it's in a weird spot. Like the left-hand side of the tree is the side where, you know, Duelist sort of leans to, so Gladiator lives there. Like block stuff is over there. All the block wheels are over there, so it does make sense. But yeah, it means you can't have like weird, spicy thematic combinations. Like I know a friend of mine was going to be putting out a build guide on a build that would have used what's the name of it, Wind Dancer, but because the build was in the top right of the tree and now Wind Dancer's down in the bottom right, she just can't use it anymore.
Perfect. All tricksters. I bet it was a trickster build.
Saboteur.
Even better. All shadow builds must die. I think what they've done with the keystones is they've done a really good job, honestly. Because at first I didn't like the position of Glancing Blow and then the one that was next to Totemic Zeal, which I can't remember.
Eternal Youth?
Yeah, I think it was Eternal Youth. I thought maybe those two could have been swapped around, but the more I thought about it, the more like I ran through different build scenarios and all this shit, and the more they kept it the fuck away from any shadow setup. I loved it. Honestly, I think they did a tremendous job with it.
Glancing Blows is in a very good spot for necro builds, so Raiz is happy.
That's the only thing that I really don't like. That it's still way too good for literally anything necro, but that's like pretty much the only downside.
Like it's right on your routing. You don't really need to change anything.
Yeah.
I think Necro has the opportunity. I don't know. I'm sure we'll see plenty of good Glancing Blows Necro builds, but personally, I think Necro has the opportunity with good enough investment to just go regular block, which is like better every day of the week.
Yeah.
Is it though, when you consider opportunity cost?
I don't think the opportunity, like, I think regular block is strong enough that the opportunity cost is worthwhile.
I think in some. I don't think that's a wrong statement to make. I think it's a wrong statement to make 100% of the time.
Sure. And I think there's plenty of, like, particularly solo self-found or budget or, you know, starter-friendly versions that it'll make a lot of sense to go for Glancing Blows. But I don't know, I think an optimized version, you probably go for regular block. But that's rather specific.
I can see that with a lot of builds.
Yeah. I do like regular block over Glancing Blows. It is impactful for sure.
Glancing Blows being over there is a huge boon for, I think, Templar, actually, more than the other Ascendancies in the left-hand side of the tree. Templar and Marauder, like the Ascendancy, or the classes rather, that didn't have the option to go block heavy beforehand, now have the option to access block synergies and have more damage smoothing, and not take as big spiky hits. Like, I'm way more excited to play an Inquisitor now because of Glancing Blows.
Oh yeah.
I think
also the fact that you don't have to actually go out of your way to get the keystone, like a weird keystone somewhere, and then the jewel and everything, and just to get the Glancing Blows will make it a lot better for a lot of builds.
I think Wind Dancer got hit pretty hard as well. A lot of the builds that would want to go Wind Dancer are now.
Oh really? You think that?
Yeah.
Is it now?
Every Wind Dancer build I've played has been a shadow, so you hate them. But has converted, I think Perfect Agony is the one I usually convert on the way over to Constitution.
Yeah, that's the one that I always use as well. But
see, but I feel
Duelist is a bit.
I feel like that makes so much more sense because it juices up all the builds that need juicing, which is like midway bow builds, and then melee now has the option between do I get what is it called again? The wind dancing.
Wind
Dancer, yeah. But you have the choice between Wind Dancer and fucking Iron Reflexes.
Well,
like
that's my point though, because a lot of builds in that part of the tree have just been abusing Vol Molten Shell and Iron Reflexes, so I don't think they need Wind Dancer. Whereas now, but like this,
I think melee needs all the help it can get.
No, but what I'm saying is you now have a bunch of builds that would who would go range a shadow up and across. Those builds are now kind of like, well, I can't get this defense, and if you're going Wind Dancer, you kind of want to combo it with Acro, Phase Acro. So it's kind of, I don't know, I think it's awkward for a lot of the...
That's the problem, though. You don't really, again, I am a firm believer in not buffing the shadow builds. Keep everything the fuck away from shadow builds, but the problem is you also have to keep it the fuck away from Glancing Blows. So, like, there's really no other location where they...
I would have just kept it in Ranger. I would have put it like under Acro, Phase Acro, closer to Ranger. I wouldn't have put it near Duelist. I would have put it near like
it would become mandatory. 100% of the time you would have to get it. Like there's no exception. Because you path through there anyway, and like putting it next to Perfect Agony would have done the same thing.
This isn't going to be a popular statement, but maybe if you feel like it's going to be mandatory in the area of the tree where to me it makes the most sense, it shouldn't be on the tree and it should be a timeless keystone.
Yeah,
maybe that's one of the ones you keep as a timeless keystone.
I agree. Whoa, I was also expecting them to nerf it. Like that's
which one are we talking about?
You guys don't think them putting the keystones on the tree is a nerf? Like
no. What I'm saying is I'm surprised they put it on the tree without changing the actual node itself. I was expecting them to nerf the node itself. So it's like this is too powerful for the builds that currently use it. So what we're doing is we're making it hard for those builds to use it. Well, you could have had it still accessible to those builds, but just nerf the node itself.
Yeah, lower the numbers or something.
Instead, they've just said the builds don't use it anymore. Now something else does, which doesn't solve the problem.
I've used it in like 2 or 3 saboteurs, and I hadn't made the build yet, but I had planned to use it in a raider, so pretty much anything like far right of the tree.
I use it a lot in like Caustic Arrow. You use it a lot with...
Why can't you use it anymore on that?
That's one of the builds which is still alright with it. I also used it a lot on trappers, and now I would never.
It's a lot worse on
never-
traps and mines.
I would never go near there on traps and mines. I used to very regularly do traps, Kintsugi, acro, phase acro, because you didn't have that much HP, because it was awkward for a while if you were life basic enough EHP, so you would then stack mitigation. And now it's like you could just never take it, because no trap build realistically is going to root that far down.
How many travel points would you spend to get it on like a shadow build
5.
where you would think it would be reasonable? And you don't do that now? You don't travel to the... Well, I guess you stay away from the ranger anyway.
I think it's alright to be as worth as many points as like getting phase acro. I'd say like 4 or 5 points.
You're getting stuff along the way though. And if it's that strong in the right setup, in the right shell, I mean, you might give up a little bit, but that doesn't mean
Not for miners. I think miners got
miners
pretty
is going to be
counted.
rough, yeah.
Because like the same thing applies to glancing blow and also the 0 ES thing regeneration. Miners got hit pretty hard by that too, being practically moved completely away from them.
You also need
what's the agnostic? Yeah.
Agnostic. Agnostic, I'm so hyped for. I think agnostic's gonna be great. I'm probably gonna league start agnostic Archmage Cremation or something. But you also need to keep in mind it's like those right side of build trees have kind of feel a bit awkward now with shit like cluster jewels, and it's like points are so valuable now, and I like that points are so valuable, but I do find it. I would kind of like it if they added them on the tree, but maybe you could still get them on timeless jewels, or they nerf them or something, because it like glancing jewels. I think glancing blows is a very good example. They're like, okay, we don't like all these CI builds using glancing blows. How are we gonna nerf it? Okay, we're just gonna put it on an awkward spot of the tree.
Yep.
I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people see this as like buffs, but to me, these are buffs in the right spots and nerfs in the other spots. That's why initially I thought they were going to be nerfing the nodes, but I actually like this solution a lot more. Again, the only exception being pretty much Necro, because but I mean, it is fair what Octavian pointed out. I think a well-geared Necro won't use glancing blows anyway, and it does path through there, so the opportunity cost, I think, works in this favor for Necro in particular. For everything else, I often see people getting like pathing for 20% block when in reality they could have been spending those 30 passives on something like much more worthwhile. But yeah, that rule just doesn't apply as much to Necro. So I like it a lot. And I mean, the biggest problem, and this was something that my stream made me realize for sure, was that because I was a little perplexed about which keystones they're adding to the skill tree in particular, but it really makes so much more sense when you take into account that you can now have a like divine flesh and then something like glancing blows, that they really went after the correct ones in my mind, with the only exception being I think divine flesh probably should have been added to the tree on top of everything. So
it wasn't added?
Not that we've seen.
No.
Oh, but they're adding like 8 to 9, right?
Anyway.
Didn't they say they were adding like 8, 9-ish? Like they thought about?
Yeah.
They are
fairly
also,
certain I heard that.
really?
They said they're also adding some which aren't timeless jewels.
Yeah, there's a few new ones.
So I imagine, because we've seen, how many have we seen? What, 5?
Agnostic, Eternal Youth,
Supreme
Wind
Ego.
Dancer, Glancing Blows, Supreme Ego. So I think 5.
I think Divine Flesh and Corrupted Soul are going on the tree. That's like, I think that's pretty fair, because those are a little bit too strong. It's the Shabakwa, the 10% max chaos res, and then the 20% extra maximum energy shield.
Where would you
like
put
those
that?
Are Divine Flesh. So I did think about this one. It is very tricky because you want to put it around where CI is in a way, but then it's juicing up builds that it's already strong, and it just gives you more like ways of itemizing around it.
Just quickly to interrupt you, someone said something very intelligent in chat. We've seen one per type of timeless jewel, which makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They're adding new ones to timeless jewels as well, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
so
they're replacing one.
Yeah, so that would make sense if they've just removed one and then added a new one.
I would put Divine Flesh probably around Profane Chemistry and like Arcane Chemistry, pretty much where they put. I can't remember which one they put there. Supreme Ego, yeah. But that one's really tricky. Corrupted Soul, I
That
have
would be
no idea.
so broken. Or that would be a huge buff to like a lot of Pathfinder builds and stuff. Because they used to like go in awkward, like a lot of Scourge builds and like CA and anything with Dark Scorn would convert point blank, and they often root up
but
there.
I think
okay.
I think that's a big trade-off though, because you have to. Most of those builds struggle with getting to a point where they don't have to travel to the Scion Life. So this is like kind of further justification for it, but it's also a pretty large investment gear-wise and whatnot, because it's suffixes we're talking about. I kind of like it.
I don't really know how I feel about the fact, because like Scion Life is already so strong that they've put a bunch of powerful nodes near Scion Life, because it's just kind of like more reason to go Scion Life, which it makes sense because it's accessible, because it's like the middle of the tree. But
I think they were also worried about Scion builds and Might of the Meek. So they kind of like moved a lot of stuff away from that, especially the fucking I keep forgetting the Supreme Ego and whatnot. So I think that was a pretty big concern for them. Although being concerned about Scion is kind of weird.
Nether Mage in chat, says Soul Tether Unique Creator said GGG asked him if he's okay with a Keystone Possible, one of his timeless jewels.
It's basically Soul Tether on Evolve. Straight up.
Please. Oh my god. I feel the nightmares dispersing. No more chancing belts. Holy shit.
So it gives you, it should give you everything except the int and ES on a keystone.
What a hero, murdering his own item for the good of the game.
Oh.
The item actually gets buffed inadvertently through this. Yeah, because if they make it into a keystone, you can use catalyst on it, because it wouldn't affect the keystone. It would just affect the other things, which would, because there's like a downside, you know, you would lose more energy shield as well if you buff the energy shield. So it's like a small thing you could do, small buff.
Cool.
And now, and then you would have the option of either going, you know, belt or that thing, which is generally something I like in PvP. I will say I find it kind of interesting that a lot of people are like, oh, this actually nerfs X thing, and therefore I don't like it. Because players have like all sorts of attachments of certain builds they like, but it's also gonna like make it easier for so many other builds to take advantage of it, and it's gonna like allow for so much theory crafting and so many new builds to like emerge, because they now finally get the option to take these things, which I think is gonna be amazing.
Well, I think that was the problem. I don't know if it's the option to take these things. I think the problem was that a timeless jewel for 2 passives on your tree, like if you're traveling down to Scion Life and you get it from MOM or something like that, like that's, you pick up the jewel, you pick up MOM, you're done. Like, I think that was like bizarrely powerful. Like how, like what the fuck?
No, for like, so there were like, you know, Doriani's, what was it called? The flesh, whatever, and glancing builds. I mean, there are like these things that are so meta now that every build basically gets them, and they need to like, that needs to not exist anymore. That needs to be specific to a certain point. But then there's like the more niche ones where we're like, oh, but I really liked it on these builds because it enabled this and that. And, you know, I mean, miners really need that much help. I mean, they're very strong already.
Miners
so, I mean, maybe
don't.
This
Traps are on Suicide Watch.
Right.
Wait, traps?
Yeah, traps.
What's that?
Is there anything more we want to say about Time Shield, so we start talking about the brand stuff?
Put more shit on the skill tree.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I mean, they've also said they're adding a bunch of new like clusters as well. They're adding more Warcry support. We've seen some new clusters, which will be really fun. New two-hand stuff. Rage as well. I'm like, I think you said this in your video, Raiz. Nothing gets me more excited than skill tree changes. Even though I'm a bit annoyed about Wind Dancer, the fact that there are keystones on the tree makes me more hyped than them not being there. I'm super excited. Super excited.
Nice.
So for the brand stuff, some people are saying it's the death of brands. Some people saying brands will be fine. what was who wants to summarize the brand changes?
Is there like a way to summarize it? Because I'm not 100% on the mechanic. Okay, so basically the way it works and a lot of the problems that people have with it is that they're changing brand recall to where if you cast the brand, it's locked to a specific location. And if you move away from it and you brand recall, then the brand gets attached to the mob. And once that mob dies, it returns to the spot where it was previously. But I'm not 100%
No.
sure that's how it works.
I don't
Or-
think that's how it
so.
works.
See,
don't
I
think so.
didn't think so either. But
I
then
think
there was
you're
this-
generating a new starting spot when you recall, and then whenever they branch out, they keep returning to that spot until you recall them somewhere else. So they don't just travel along the map. So like that's like you place them in the middle of the screen. They'll jump to the next pack, it kills it, and it jumps back to the middle of the screen. So it can't jump to like all the way to the edge unless you have insane
So, yeah, I have the
attachment
post up.
range.
As far as recall says, it says brand recall instantly moves your brands to you and activates them, but it no longer refreshes the brand duration. So that's the big change with brand recall.
Yeah.
Is it's not going to keep them active. You will have to eventually re-summon, recast, however you want to say it, your brands. Also, it got a mana cost change to be based on the mana cost of the initial cast of the brand. Just as a little love tap to Archmage.
The other thing that's changing is it's not brand recall, but it's the actual like brand behavior, which is the main thing that's changing. And it's also like if it kills a mob, it stays on the floor, and then it like has to.
Brands return
attach
to
or
their
something.
original or recalled location when dropped by
Yes.
monsters.
Yeah.
So
That's where it returns to where they came from.
yeah, it returns to either where you casted it or where you most recently recalled it to.
So if there's a pack of, okay, so here's a pack of mobs. There's 5 mobs. My character is here. I cast it on this mob. It dies. Does the brand then stay here, or does it teleport back to me? It stays here because I cast it here.
It'll stay there, but if there's a monster within its attachment range, it'll
Yes.
attach to that monster.
So it will kill this monster. It will land here, then attach to this monster.
Yes.
Then it will kill this monster. Then it will come back here.
And then if the
and then
other
it will
next
jump
one
to
is
the
within
third,
range, it'll jump. Yeah.
And then it'll jump back to the first. And then if it's in range,
Which
it'll jump
makes-
to the fourth, jump back to the first.
Yeah,
and
which
then-
makes attachment range a much more valuable stat.
And do you think that's how recall works as well?
I mean, recall will basically be it's you recasting all of them
Yeah.
at your
Think of it as the way
new
it works.
spot,
It's
but
essentially
without extra duration.
your brand without having to do the animation. Yeah.
Like
But then-
essentially you change their waypoint. Like imagine like brands have a waypoint, and now you change it to be over here instead. So whenever they're like done with their thing, now this is their new waypoint, and they'll return.
See, but that's the thing with the explanation that we've just given. There is room to think, and I don't think this, but a lot of people thought that, and there's a GGG post that might mean that if they, let's say there's 5 monsters and you have only 3 brands, so you put the brands over here and they were over here, you run over, you recall, and now the brands attach themselves to 1, 2, 3. Once these mobs are dead,
No.
do the brands
recalling-
return here and then they do a check for the remaining 2 mobs, or do they do a
No.
check from here?
Recalling resets the cast location of the brand. So the brand now, so if you run somewhere and recall, the brand now uses that as its last spot to return to, if that makes sense. So if I cast a brand at point A and then run to point B and then recall,
B
the brand
becomes
now
A.
the brand now considers B its home,
Yeah.
and it'll jump to monsters from there until I recall somewhere else or recast somewhere else.
Yeah. And
The interesting thing about the system is that it takes brand attachment range and effectively makes it AoE for brands.
Yeah.
Because your brand attachment range now determines how large of an area your brand will affect from where you casted it until you recall or recast it. So it's in effect an AoE stat.
Hopefully, we're getting new
I
nodes.
mean, it
for
was
that
already a
effect as
new
well.
reset.
Yeah, but it's I don't know, it's more relevant now than it was before, I
Yeah,
guess.
for sure.
and it's
The
also
gameplay
oh, sorry.
intention behind these changes seems to be that you cast your brands, they kill everything in an area, you move to the next area, you will brand recall, sets all those, they kill everything in the area, and then they expire. Depending on duration, maybe you get 3 rotations out of that, or 4 rotations if you have a lot of duration scaling. and brand attachment range is like how big that area is. So it seems to be, and from what Chris was explaining to me as well about the idea of them being more locational or location based or kind of zone based, I think was the words they used. That seems to be kind of like the idea behind how brands will play now. So it is very different to previous brands.
It feels like it's a lot closer to a totem playstyle in that you're
Yes.
dropping a thing that has area control over a limited area, except you're able to, unlike
Relocate
totems,
them.
yeah, instantly relocate them.
Totem recall.
See, but
Pretty much.
And they don't have health.
Yes, that's pretty big too.
And they leech.
But they
Reflect.
reflect though.
totems leech too.
So basically, it's
And
not
reflect,
totems.
I guess.
It's still brands.
Yes.
Yes.
But it's
See,
closer.
but what you guys are saying makes a lot of sense to me because that's how I thought it worked too. While a lot of the people in chat were like, no, it returns to where you originally casted it, and that's how they fuck with it. But then there is a post from from one of the people from game design, Viper-esque, that says
Yeah.
the point of the change is to reduce the frequency with which your brands kill off-screen enemies. That is something you generally don't notice because you can't see or control it, but that is contributing a pretty significant amount of invisible power. But if you just use, I keep fucking forgetting what the cluster jewel is. I should
Seeker
log
runes?
in. Yeah, Seeker runes. Like, why would you do all this stuff that has such a major effect on brands across the board, even ones that don't really deal with recall as much, instead of just addressing Seeker runes? Because I don't think Seeker runes work the way they were intended to in the first place
Remind me
anyway.
which one that is again.
It's the one where the less duration you have on your brand, the more attachment range you get. So for every second less, you get 20% attachment range, and it's stackable. So people get like 1,000 attachment range, which is an entire screen. Like, how is this going to address it? It
I mean,
won't.
if they don't change that, that will be a lot better now because brands have a much shorter duration.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, they have
I
the
mean,
same duration, but the duration isn't extended. Is what I mean.
it'll be less consistent, but also because you would like cast 5 brands and then continuously resummon them, so they would, because you couldn't keep up your brands 100% of the time, the duration would slowly go down. With this, it'll basically, I guess the better your build, the more effective it's going to be in a way.
So
The more damage you do.
I have a little database here. Did I hear you describe secret runes right? Because the notable that I'm reading is damage with brand skills, and then unattached brands gain increased attachment range per second.
Yep.
So when they're not attached to something, they'll gain range.
Yes.
That doesn't. Okay, so that's
So they fall off
duration.
and then they gain until they have enough to jump to the next one.
That is different
longer
to what
duration
Raiz
is
explained,
better
yeah.
for them. Shorter duration is
Yeah,
worse
yeah.
for that. This is a nerf to secret runes, the change to brands being shorter duration and not being able to refresh their duration.
Yes.
Like that's
I
a
will
pretty
say
significant nerf to secret runes.
If everything around brands is just because Seeker runes was stupid, then I really hate the way they did it. If that's the main culprit here, I don't like it.
Well, yeah.
Nah,
I mean,
I think it was
so.
just running through maps recalling constantly without
Yeah.
having to recast the brands. That was
I'll say this
the
though.
main purpose of
Wait,
this.
what did you guys say again about the clarification? Because I think you didn't clarify it.
In regards to
Seeker
how
runes?
Seeker runes works, it gets attachment range per second while unattached to an
Oh
enemy.
yeah, no, okay,
25%
yeah.
per second while unattached.
Yeah, I don't know if I said something else, but because of the way brand recall worked, like you didn't really scale the duration because it was just unnecessary. But now you just do it. So if you have enough damage with a single brand, then the attached and unattached duration is still separate, and therefore, with enough range, you'll still. I still think it's going to be a massive problem.
Can I just quickly interject to say GGG just announced a new div card, which I'll just read very quickly. It's quite a spicy one.
No.
6 out of 6, a rare one-handed weapon, eye level 100, double influenced item.
Oh.
Yeah,
Huh.
so you're getting a double influenced eye level 100 random
Rusted
one-handed
sword.
weapon.
It's fun, I guess.
So that would
There's
be
going to be a lot of double influence chance uniques.
wands, random shitty like low-tier daggers, swords, maces, axes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gonna make a double influence bitter dream and soul and self-found now.
It's also a very cool div card because it has open design space for any future influence items they make. I really like div cards that can like scale with the game. That's a good div card.
What's it called? I don't think you read the name.
Oh, Prometheus's Armor, I think it was.
Yep.
Yes, Prometheus
what it
Armor.
is.
And the flavor text, it is a mortal's man's folly to seek power beyond his comprehension. Which is basically us trying to work out this brand stuff right now.
My wings are melting.
Yep.
That's Prometheus, right?
No,
No.
that's Icarus.
Oh, that's Icarus. Prometheus was the one who brought fire?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And who had
Prometheus was
Silver
the alien
eternally-
film that no one liked.
That too.
Have they talked about actually buffing brands though overall? Like with nerfing their
They're adding a
clear?
cluster.
Right. Okay, that's good.
How
I mean, I don't-
sorry.
I do
I
I,
really don't think they're nerfing their clear that much, honestly.
They're also adding the new brands that are gonna behave much more nicely in this system than the old ones
Right.
do, because they like want to be disattached from enemies and stuff. You know, like I think they're designed much more with current brands in mind, and they may, if the numbers are good, take up the mantle of branding.
It just kind of worries me when it's like, you know, when Chris talks about brands being like strong already, I'm like, the only reason brands were really this strong in this league was Archmage. So like brands themselves have not really been that strong for a while. And then someone will say, oh, but I made a brand build that did 12 million damage. And it's like, well, then you had an Arc, you know, that could have done 30. And it's like,
I played Armageddon brand this league. Yeah.
yeah.
Why did you do that?
It was an interesting experiment as to, well, it actually explains a lot about these changes. The problem is because like Armageddon brand is not nearly as dependent on brand recall as an example, because its cast time is like half of Storm brand, and also you've got that whole thing where, you know, it takes like a minute to fall down, so you can't just like run into the middle of the pack and recall. But recasting it felt a lot better in that way. So especially due to that, I can see how if everybody in the office played Armageddon brand and they were like, this is how we're gonna balance brand recall, then like I get it more, but yeah.
How do we feel about Builder brand? I don't like that because I feel like I feel like that yoinks identity from Totem's traps quite heavily.
Builder
That's-
brand.
That's
Arcanist
the
brand?
brand that will cast any linked skill.
It's way too late to complain about that, Tarke. We already have like all the other.
Yeah, I
proper
know.
different spells
I know.
and
I know we've had a lot of
stuff
it.
mechanics going on.
Well,
It's interesting because it could be the one thing, because like it could be the one thing that works with channeling, and it doesn't work because it's trigger, which really surprised me. Because like totems kind of work with channeling, but it tends to be pretty annoying outside of Winter Herb totems. Those things are fucking sick. People don't give them enough credit. But like putting like, yeah, Divine Ire, but then like putting it's still not great. And then like you can't put on a trap. So this would have been the natural thing where it's channeling on the brand and it travels with you, so it makes sense. But it doesn't channel because it doesn't cast.
Yeah, it's true.
It triggers. So it's like, I think that's a missed opportunity, but maybe potentially it would have been just too strong in that way.
Oh, that would have been
so-
insane.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
Ring
what's
Tor
like a-
brands or Blade Vortex brands or whatever.
Jesus.
Oh my god.
Winter.
Wait.
Herb- Oh my god, that was
Blade-
sick.
Wouldn't Blade Vortex work? Because it's like not
Blade
channeled?
Vortex, it casts the blades on you.
Okay. That's so dumb.
Oh right, it's not. I always forget it's not a channel. I don't know why I
think
always
that-
think it's because I hold down the button.
Yep. We were talking about on stream what would happen with movement skills on brands. Like if you had like flame dash brands, like would it flame dash the mob? Would it flame dash the brand off the mob? Would it flame dash you onto the mob? Like,
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
what'll happen?
Lightning
Like,
Lure brand.
Yeah, the brand isn't an entity in the same way that like a trap or a mine or a totem is.
Wait, so if you have multiple brands, it's just gonna like dash you around like crazy? I guess that's gonna be a cooldown.
Does it dash the mob around like crazy?
Like,
No, it just dashes nothing. It just does the animation, but it doesn't actually move, right?
does it not move itself? Would the brand stay in place but just lay out a trail of fire with flame dash?
It
I
just
think
like
so.
flame dashes and then comes back.
I mean, the question, yeah, I would
No,
imagine
it'll
so.
flame dash you from the mob. It'll teleport you to the mob, then flame dash you away from the mob. That's what'll happen.
Wait,
You can
so
also
Vortex-
queue things up with this. So you could do like flame dash into Frostblink into what does it do with body swap?
Oh no! Oh.
Wait, but then Blade Vortex brands will work.
Yeah, they cast
Right?
on you. Blade Vortexes from brands would cast on you. I'm pretty sure that's already been like.
Maybe this is
addressed
like
by
the
a
better
GW.
unleash.
Wait, no, wait, they cast on you?
Yeah, the blades are summoned on you, not on the brand.
Yeah, but that says
It's-
that on everything, no? What does everything else say? What's like another thing like Blade Vortex?
I think I kind of want to do a body swap with this now.
Oh god, I've got a headache.
Just have a few of them out and just like rapidly ricochet around the screen.
I feel like lightning word makes sense. It's like what you would
Weapon-
always wanted to do with spell totem, but never really worked quite well enough. But now it's built into it because it's not a totem; it's a brand, so it travels on its own.
I think it will be really good for like utility setups. The fact that you can like desecrate an offering in one button and stuff like that.
I think there will be some utility use for this, yeah.
I think it's
God,
already
like
cool.
VD as well. Like then you could actually have like a pseudo self-cast VD, where it's like you just have the brand cast your VD and you're just desecrating.
Or the other way around.
Yeah.
As that would allow you
The
to
other
not
way
care about
around.
damage links on the brand setup.
Right.
So you
just have
could like
the-
do increased duration on
Ooh.
your brand, so you don't have to cast it very much.
That'd be
Yeah.
really
Mhm.
nice because in like self-cast DD and stuff, it's kind of like you always think, should
Mm.
I use a unearthed totem? Or it always feels kind of like wanky. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Immortal Call brand.
The thing is,
That's an
like
interesting
that is a lot of utility because
Yeah.
it
it is.
does you obviously like it wouldn't cast skills unless it's attached to something, but if you brand recall with it, then it uses it once, I think.
I mean, it'll attach and then
It
it'll start
triggers them when you
casting,
recall.
right?
Yeah, it triggers when
Oh,
recall.
also when you recall.
Yeah, when you brand recall, you trigger your brands.
Mm.
I
Do you though? I'm pretty sure they nerfed the whole sap idea because you could shotgun with it before, and now you can't.
From the forum post about the brand
Oh.
rework, brand recall still instantly moves your brands to you and activates them.
the wiki brand
Still
recall doesn't
activates
say
them.
it. I thought it maybe
I don't.
said gem.
I mean, I can link you the page here. It's
No, no,
I mean, I know it
I
does
believe
that,
you.
but like I'm just surprised.
Rise.
Recall
Why
doesn't
won't
say
you believe me, Rise?
No, I believe you. I'm looking at the brand recall, and the brand recall doesn't say it, so I thought it says it on the Storm brand. That it clarifies that with brand recall it does, but then it doesn't. I don't know.
I
Unless I'm blind, like always. On the wiki, brand recall doesn't say it.
It supports Whispering Eyes.
It causes
Oh,
them to.
that's actually.
It is there. It does say it on the brand recall. Sorry.
Sorry, my brain's turning off. Is there anything else you want to talk about brands? Because we still haven't touched on the slam stuff that they're trying to push.
The slam stuff.
Oh, finally, time to be negative. I've been liking
What?
old shit way too much.
What? Really?
All right, go on, Raiz.
Go.
Okay.
I don't.
Why do you hate melee?
Never worked, and I think they made a real big flaw in their logic. Okay, they're addressing Tectonic Slam. They're addressing Tectonic Slam exactly for the reason why it didn't work. It's inconsistent attack pattern, which was the reason why it initially kind of worked and then slowly got pushed out of the meta. And now they're adding a thing that's supposed to work identically to this. I don't think it makes sense. What they should have done is have this be a support that doesn't automatically use whenever it's off cooldown, it should have just added an extra ability, sort of like a vol skill that isn't
Right.
cooldown, that is a separate attack. And I think that would have just fixed the entire issue. And I think that would have made two-handers like fucking sicko mode extra spicy. But like this, they're repeating the same mistake of Tectonic Slam while addressing Tectonic Slam and changing the thing what it's bad for and putting it on other things that they're supposed to be good now. It making no sense.
So
Okay, so I'm going to explain Raiz because no one has a clue what he's talking about. He's talking about Fist of War support, which has a cooldown that empowers your slam. But see, you're wrong, Raiz, because if you're playing proper two-handed melee, you have less than 1 attack per second, and the cooldown is about 1 second on it.
Right.
So it activates every single attack. So that's why you're wrong.
And that's the worst part, because we're going back to like the fucking Maroi Urki is the best weapon for Earthquake because I get the procs every time. It's like, dude, fuck off. That shit never worked, okay? Eat-Up was wrong. Face the truth. I don't, yeah.
So you're
I
saying
think they're heading in the right direction, but like the way they went about it is just completely wrong to me.
you want something that would like charge up and then you can choose to use it when you need it on like a red beast or a map boss or something like that.
Just do it the same way they did it now. I think the fact that you use the support for it totally makes sense. That's the cost of it. But the fact that it uses every time, even when you don't need it, and then when you do need it,
Yep.
it's a fucking cooldown when you're on the next pack.
Yeah,
I
so
think
something
that
you can
fucking
save.
sucks. What's up?
So something you can save until you need it on like a red
Yeah,
beast
just
or a
do it
map
the
boss or
same
something
way,
like that.
but now you've got the cooldown one and the normal attack, and that's
They've-
it. And then you just click it whenever it doesn't work, which is the reason why in the past, like something, because it's very reminiscent of Vol Grand Slam.
Yeah.
So it's like a Vol Grand Slam, but not.
I mean,
And-
it's sort of like placing your banner too, and it's sort of like swapping to blood stance. Like they have all these different tools that are already in place where you can press the button and do more damage temporarily.
Yeah.
How
You
does
already
it
have access to those.
Yeah, but
how
this
does it like reset on its own before the cooldown?
Does it?
do you
Yeah, when you look at it like trigger, it'll like it goes off cooldown, then it slams and it'll come off so it's like ready to use. Slam. He hits like a monster a couple times, and then it resets the cooldown while being like only a third way through. What's that about?
Maybe there's an ascendancy change to interact with that, or maybe there's some item investment or something on the tree.
works like that. I would like that a
Very-
lot more.
I will say I'm with Raiz on this. I think if it's just like on a cooldown and it's like up every now and then, and it gets this if it's inconsistent the way I would worry it would be, I would probably not use it.
It's fucking Tectonic Slam, and they're addressing Tectonic Slam. They're fixing it exactly for this reason. I don't understand it. I don't know. I mean, it might just be strong enough that it won't be an issue and like it'll just work. I don't think it will, or eventually it's going to get pushed out of the meta just naturally because it's a cooldown that you can't really manage on these sort of builds. But
If you can't actually interact with if you can't probably interact with the cooldown to make it match what you need it to do, then then it's just never gonna be good enough. You know, I mean, we have some cooldown reduction, but it's just never enough. It's like you have to give up so much cooldown reduction in general to make anything like this work, to where the build is just not worth it anymore.
the people are comparing it to Shockwave Totem, Shockwave support. It's like, yeah.
Yes.
Anybody been playing your Shockwave support builds lately?
No.
It's like,
You could do both in the same build, and you just reach a critical mass point where you have so many like cooldowns going off that it doesn't matter. Something's always happening.
Yeah, but-
Shockwave, Fist of War, Earthquake, Maroi Urki build.
yeah, but then you see
Is
the
Maroi
boss,
Urki with the Shockwave? I think it's
Exit.
snap only. What's that?
then you see the boss, and you're just like, yeah, I guess I only have AOE support gems. See you later, doggy. It's like killing conquerors. Thing of the past. You don't need that.
I
Mm.
really like the idea of like two-handers having the option to store damage. That would actually make a lot of sense for their playstyle. You know, that being a unique feature of two-handers, like we can like store up damage and unleash. Whereas with one-handers, we like, you know?
Oh,
Sounds like Plague Bearer when you like
Yeah, well, I
save it up
mean
for when you
that
need it.
being one of the key features of two-hander, I think would make total sense.
I'm with it.
Like unleash your inner Karuri. I like it.
Can you imagine?
Then the guy comes up, rah, boom, when you click, you unleash.
People in the chat being like, Raiz, when was the last time you played Melee? Dog, it doesn't matter, okay? I fucking played more Melee in this game than you've played it entirely, all right? This is not a fair argument.
As far as I'm concerned, Raiz will always be the Sunder boy.
There you
Raiz
go.
played a
I
lot of
am the
Melee,
Thunder
dude.
boy. I only
Raiz is
when it fits me, but I am, okay? This time.
on this. Raiz is absolutely 100% right. Just saying.
There you go.
Yep.
My man.
Fist of War looks freaking sick though.
Hmm?
It does look
No,
cool.
it looks really cool.
Yeah.
Just make it good as well. Then we're like, double whammy.
I really think they're onto something. I think
Yeah.
it just needs a little bit more, but then honestly, two-hander, I think two-hander with this, two-handers would take over. Straight up. Or the idea that Noogie has with like storing attacks, I think that's fucking cool. Because you don't like the whole point of two-handers is to have this massive impact. And this most definitely accomplishes it. But when you've got a massive impact, when you don't give a shit about it, that ain't Falco, okay? It just ain't cool. But then when you can store it and you can release that big fucking like like back in the day, the multi-strike full ground slam, that thing was fucking sick. I loved it. Okay, this would be the same thing, just better.
I'm all for more Vol Ground Slams. That is one of the most satisfying buttons to press in the video game.
Yes. And this
guys,
is exactly it, right? Like when you watch this gameplay, I'm having flashbacks. It's great.
Guys, there's something pretty cool in chat. Two-hander combo attacks where you leap slam into a slam skill. Be kind of cool. So it's like it's like if you like you store an attack in your leap slam, so then when you leap slam, it's like when it maybe has like a cooldown. That could be pretty sick.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
That sounds like PoE 2, I'm just gonna say, where you like combo things. No, seriously, it's entirely sounds like something they could do, where you combo the things. You know what? You have those like they will have things where they combo things together, right? Where they will link things together.
So hold up though, Raiz. So you want a button you can press that'll empower your melee attacks on demand, effectively, right?
No, not empower.
So, like-
actually, like
No,
a second attack.
yeah, second attack, but it's the same one, just stronger.
Yes.
It's on his cooldown.
It's like an echo. It could even be weaker. It could be like an echo attack, like a smaller one, but you have like multiple stored.
Hmm.
I
was
mean,
just-
What
I
kind of
like
like
the same
thinking-
attack. Maybe an empowered attack, and it's like low cooldown.
I
Or
want a
higher
full ground
cooldown.
slam, but without the souls, okay, and not being trash. That's what I want, and this is what it could give me, and it's just not doing it.
I see. In the meantime,
Melee
may I
Unleash.
introduce you to Exert on Warcry?
I was gonna say, yeah.
Because it sounds a bit like Exert.
Yeah,
Exert?
for sure.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
new Warcry system where you can go for it. So I've spoken enough today.
Oh.
So several of the Warcries now, when you use them, they exert your next few attacks. So that basically gives them like a ton of AoE and damage from the looks of it. So it's kind of like Fist of War, but on demand. We press a button and activate it, and it'll power you up your next few attacks.
Okay, so I'll address one of the problems with two-handers, which is the way we play PoE and how we really love consistency, right? Where things just kind of naturally spreads out. When you play melee and two-hander and you go for those like big things, and then you get this like a quarter of the pack left, and you have to deal with that, and then you have to invest your whole like on it. It's the worst. You want to have this like nice fluid gameplay while being a two-hander.
Or like your crit misses, or like accuracy.
Yeah,
or something,
those
and
kind
you're
of things. Exactly.
Oh, nothing. Yeah.
The worst. Like think about whenever you played like two-handed melee, and it's like you get the worst experience of that. That's kind of what we want to eliminate. Like the game is not going to change to accommodate two-handers, so you kind of have to accommodate two-handers to the game.
I mean, do you remember? It took a long time for them to fix this. How long it was when you're a marauder on the beach and you're like, am I lagging or am I missing? And you couldn't tell because your heavy strikes like weren't connecting.
Right.
Yeah, it's that whole issue.
It's still the case. By the way, there's a Marauder race tomorrow. To anybody that's maybe watching it live, you're gonna see plenty of that. It's gonna be great. It's an Act 10 Marauder race.
How do you fix that though?
Screen-sized earthquake AoE, then you won't miss anything.
No.
Yeah. Vol Grand Slam can't miss, by the way. Just saying. Flawless game design.
The way people fixed it was they did multi-strike Sunder with you know, Resolute technique, right? It's like attack 8 times a second. That's how you fix it. And then you don't play two-hander anymore.
I haven't touched multi-strike since the rework. How do people feel about it now? Do they still hate it, or is it good? Or
I think people love it once they fix the mechanical issue with you like breaking up your attacks, essentially making it so that you have to change it up. Like people love it. And then fucking Awaken multi-strike is like the most bizarre damage upgrade ever. It's like a 40% multi on a single gem. I mean, it earns its price, that's for sure. It's a really good one. So I'm cool with it.
there isn't a like support gem that fucks your attack speed. It just makes you do way more damage, is there?
A support gem that does that?
Pulverize, I guess,
Does
is
that
the
affect your
closest
attack
to that.
speed?
Yeah, that's a attack speed penalty, right?
It's an attack speed. It's less attack speed for more AoE.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
surprised there isn't one for
Multipliers.
It's
damage.
the closest thing. It's 15% less attack speed, 60% more damage, 34% increased AoE. It used to be a more AoE multiplier.
I mean, there
When it
is
was
that for
good.
bows, right? Vicious projectiles
Yeah.
has less attack speed as well.
I honestly can't remember the last time I played a proper melee. I think the last time I played melee was Bestiary. Cleave champion.
I had some run-ins with Lightning Strike, but that was a weird one too. Because Vol Lightning Strike is so fucking weird. I don't know.
What does it do now?
It's like you place down a thing that doesn't scale with your attack speed, and that thing will use Lightning Strike.
Oh, that thing.
But like
right.
the problem is you have like Ancestral Call attached to Lightning Strike, which doesn't do anything.
Yes.
You have like Multi-Strike, and it doesn't do
Yeah.
anything. So essentially your Vol skill is on like a 3-link,
Yep.
and it's just
I
don't know.
remember now.
It's a really weird one, that one. They did buff it up. I can't remember with what though.
Also, did you notice how big of AoE you get with some of the new stuff for melee? I mean, it was literally screen wide.
It was big. Yeah.
That was pretty exciting. That was with the exert stuff, right?
Yeah,
That's when you
it's with it.
got like the big AoE.
Are there
I think
any
in the meta
Warcries they haven't announced, or have we seen them all? I can't remember.
Yeah, there's still
Yes.
they only announced Seismic Cry, I think, from the new ones, right? So I think it's still like 2 more to
Yeah, the
announce.
changes to rallying.
Yeah, they announced changes to rallying.
What
They
would
did
be...
say that it
Oh,
suggested they were changing all of the existing ones. So I don't know
Yeah.
how they're
Yeah.
changing, like, say, Abyssal Cry, for example.
Hopefully they
What
give
if
it AoE, because it's good, but they just made it really small for some reason.
Which one?
Abyssal Cry.
Abyssal.
Oh,
I've tried using that a few times recently, but they nerfed the AoE so hard.
it's a very dangerous skill.
It's
like
it's
guaranteed.
really good, but have you used it recently? Have you seen how tiny it is?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Should do that with all Cops Explosion or you know, percentage AoE based attacks.
For the 2 unannounced ones, sorry, what would we like to see?
I have no idea. Warcries are
Assign a skill on the
so
spot.
crazy. The only thing that I'm scared, because like they really did a great job with making it so that Warcries are going to be more usable during boss fights. I think that they really nailed it with that one if they scale it properly. That's really freaking cool. The only thing that I'm really worried about in Warcries, and I have to mention Grim Dawn for this, because despite Grim Dawn's like many amazing designs, they really fucked up a lot of the buffing stuff where it's like word of renewal, you know, you press a button every 30 seconds and that's it. Like it's like Flasks in PoE, but even worse. because you just don't have an option. I guess it has like an instant heal, but you never use it for that. You use it for like the general buff. So I would hate for Warcry to be something like that, where you just like, oh, 4 seconds went by, click. 4 seconds went by, click. But I think they're thinking about these pretty well, and yeah,
I mean,
I'm
they
having
seem
high hopes.
very active in nature, right? You do something to gain a buff you want, like, you know, with the whole exert stuff.
I kind of like how they've experimented a bit with like debuffing enemies. Kind of goes back more to like that shout barb D2 vibe. Because one of the ones they've shown off is like it makes enemies get stunned more often and stuff like that. I would like to see.
Oh, that one's so dangerous. It's really interesting, that one, for me, because it's like stuns are getting finally to a, well, they've been getting to that point for the longest time, but people are stunning literally everything in the game. And stuns are like so bizarrely strong, but then people are like, I saw Quinn play it and it fucking sucked. It's like, dude, if you keep adding stun stuff, we're gonna run into like a freeze mine situation. It's just gonna be way overboard. So I was really surprised about that one.
I want a silence to silence casters. It's like jump into a room
cool.
and I don't get sparked to death.
That's cool.
That'd be cool. I would like to see a caster one, since they nerfed Rallying Cry, because you used to use that in a lot of Mon builds. Now it hasn't got the mana thing anymore. I think it's good to have some kind of mana-y one.
You do a silence Warcry, and every single enemy in Hall of Grandmasters is going to want that just to fuck with people.
Yes. Oh, that's even better. Now I really want it.
You're going to have to get... Well, I guess a warding flask just gets rid of silence, because it is like technically a curse, right?
Yeah.
I think it is like tied to a curse always.
I mean, you can make it something else. You can make it a unique thing. They can do a lot of things.
What could maybe be cool is if they had like an essence drain like ability from Witch Doctor, where it was like you could tag enemies, you kill them, and you'd got mana back. That could be kind of cool. So it's like a mana burn or like a mana drain, but you used to kill the enemy. So like you
just
Warcry,
like everyone's favorite mechanic, mana on kill. I love it.
but like not shit. So it's like you do it, and it's like it puts like an essence drain on them. You kill them, then you get this nice like sucky animation, and you get some mana on kill.
I don't think we can hate on mana on kill though. The amount of people who wanted the mana on kill this league.
Yeah.
Yeah, the percent one.
It's better than, you know.
percent mana on kill would be really nice. Because it's like they had this whole awkward thing for the longest time with like casters and mana leech and like, do we like it, do we not like it, and now we're in a kind of okayish spot with like enduring flasks and stuff. But I feel like this would be a nice way that you could, because you could even have it so maybe it works a little bit like enduring flasks, where it like trickles in a little bit, so it's like it's nice for Mon builds. I think that'd be kind of cool.
I want to have punishment as a Warcry as well. Turns them like, isn't that makes them like attack and almost like all these kind of things faster, or was that before?
Punishment.
I can't remember.
You mean what the buff from punishment does? It's a melee damage multiplier and I think a melee specific attack speed multiplier.
I remember. Was there anything in the game ever that juiced up, you know, the monster's attack speed or something?
Enemy monsters attack speed?
Or I might remember. Maybe it's a different game.
No, you're remembering correctly. Cursed enemies grant. Oh no, this is on melee hit. I think it was punishment. Punishment got changed like 20 times.
All right. Okay. It's like old.
Yeah.
But it'll be fun to like make the, you know, the enemies, you know, interact kind of differently when they got cried upon.
You mean like a blood frenzy sort of skill where the enemy attack faster and do more damage, but get like squishy,
get vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Dude, punishment is fucking pretty good now.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty good.
Just kind of weird to have the monster hit you though.
Yeah. But the duration is so long now.
That's a good one.
I feel like in a weird way, Pee-wee has a lot of debuffs, but doesn't have many interactive debuffs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a lot of it's just kind of like automated, or you have an item, or you have this like passive effect, but there aren't that many kind of like you shout, and that shouting like affects the way the enemies work. Nearly all of it's just like passive things that happen as you play.
I mean, they've added a few things that are meant to be those like active abilities, but they pretty much always either get ignored or turned into passive things.
Or
So, like,
they're just like
either-
raw damage, like as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, either you have the situation where you have like Wave of Conviction, which everyone in every build that uses it tries to trigger it if they can, you know, like in a trigger wand or, you know, in a cast and damage taken or something like that. Or you have the Vol Impurity situation where, you know, it's a powerful debuff, but like people just don't bother using it for one reason or another. In that situation, often because you can pen past ignoring res being more useful.
Oh. I've been trying to think like what other debuffs I would like to see added, and I think some kind of like essence, like you're like draining the life force of enemies or something on like a Warcry could be kind of
Some
cool.
sort of draining essence.
Yeah, I realized I just kept saying essence drain, which is an ability, but yeah.
What if we drained their essence?
I remember Octavian did one of these a couple of Baeclast because like, you know, it'd be really cool if you had some kind of like bow attack which was like nature, and it's like you made pods on the ground and it kind of like they got wrapped in the roots, and Niggy's like toxic rain. Yeah, like if we had
What do you guys think about the new chess piece?
Love it.
Iran mobs exist.
It's a dangerous one.
So
Lightning
ridiculous.
dots. Lightning dots. There-
Yep.
Okay, if this was pre Conquerors of the Atlas, that chess piece would be a lot better, because then like the only lightning dot I can think of is in the game is like the laser squid, whose name I can't remember. But post Conquerors of the Atlas, you're gonna be coming across the lightning squares all the time.
If they put Divine Flesh on the skill tree and you go with the other one as well, then you're immune to lightning dots. You take no lightning damage if you can use both.
Yeah,
Divine
Wind
Flesh
Dancer,
and-
Divine Flesh.
There's the
Which
other
one?
one, or something.
Isn't that one from hits?
No.
There's
Let me
also
look it
like
up.
generic dot reduction on like
You
Trickster
can't-
and Assassin and stuff
Tempered
like that.
Tempered by War.
Can you convert
Tempered by
damage
war,
taken
right?
from dots? I don't think you can
No.
you? No, okay. That wouldn't work either.
So
Oh,
you
you
just-
can't convert dot damage taken?
No, you just
No,
stack
no,
like
on the
reduction.
hits.
You can't convert dots in general.
Yeah, because Tempered by War doesn't actually say hit specifically, but if you can't convert, then it's not a point that matters.
Oh, so it never actually. Wait, but doesn't what's it called? Lower the dot damage you take? The other one's Ibaqua?
Divine Flesh.
Yeah.
I assumed it did. I've never actually tested it myself.
So why?
Wait, what is the question again?
Whether Divine Flesh works against LE dots.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh.
If Divine Flesh works against LE dots, then isn't that incoming elemental damage conversion to chaos? So wouldn't Tempered by War also work against an LE dot?
I didn't think it worked. I didn't think Divine Flesh worked once.
Actually,
I
yeah,
don't
I'm not
know either way, I
100%
haven't
anymore.
tested it.
No.
It's
But,
only
you know,
when it's
if one then the other, they follow.
Isn't it only when it says like specifically from hits that it doesn't work? I mean, the reason,
That
the
was my
thing, the reason why we don't generally think of it working is because everything has that like line saying that it's from hits.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does Divine
these-
Flesh work on Righteous Fire?
That's the easiest way to test, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
50%
I've not tested
It's
that.
50% of elemental damage taken as chaos damage. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't work,
By
but
the wording, it should work on dots unless there's an explicit rule that dots, like incoming damage from dots, can't be converted. Which I've never come across that rule, but you guys seemed pretty steadfast that it existed.
People in chat saying Percy tested whether it works. So yeah, apparently it would work then, yeah.
And you
Okay,
do temper
then,
by war.
yeah, it should work.
Like boom, now you take no lightning damage at all.
I'm
Now,
spooked by that
I think
chess piece.
now you don't even need armor for that build. Obviously, armor is really good right now, but you could have a build that didn't really build much armor. And
Wait,
so
you don't like having 50,000 life? What?
I mean, of course, that's good, but
Pretty
you
good.
know.
Are we expecting VMS to get killed? They have to nerf it. They need to replace it with something else. But
I thought they're gonna fucking just demolish it, but I think they're standing by the whole like melee needs this, and that's it. Bottom line, and like whatever caster can work towards it, fair, good job.
It's such an odd.
It's been like 4 leagues.
All the other like god skills, which is, I guess, like actually Immortal Call is really good.
Has it been a year now? It has, right?
It's been like 4 leagues.
Yeah. This will be the year mark, right, for where they introduced it.
I don't know. Immortal Call definitely doesn't. People are really like all about the steel skin. I feel like Immortal Call doesn't get enough attention. I've been really liking it, especially with like the block stuff. Pretty effective.
It's just hard to maintain the endurance charges consistently. That's like the only problem with Immortal Call.
Also,
sorry. In builds that scale a decent chunk of duration. So I did Immortal Call on the BV Poison build that I did recently, because you're scaling skill effect duration anyways, and I just had a low level one with a low level cast and damage taken. No endurance charge gen or anything, just natural, a bit of duration scaling and frequent procs. And it felt pretty good.
I think it's also it's one of those things of, because people were used to the old Immortal Call and then it went to something which you can't see the mitigation. People are like, oh, this is shit, but you feel it. It definitely does make a big difference in the survive bit of your character. Is there anything we haven't touched on? Because I feel like we've hit most topics, haven't we?
See, I feel like there's some like super glaring thing that we're forgetting.
That's what I feel like as well.
Oh, what about there's the whole like does not consume sextant uses on maps. You can get an implicit like that on a map.
What?
Kind of interesting. Yeah, you can get an implicit on maps now that says does not consume sextant uses.
Okay.
Finally, some automation. Cool. I would like that. Yeah. I don't know where you get it from.
It's the new crafting. It's one of the crafts you can do.
Be one of the seeds.
Oh, is it just? Oh yeah, but then the map gets consumed, so it's like one time.
Yeah. Basically, just giving you more sextants.
I hope it's coming.
Let's say you set up like a really nice quadrant, right, with the perfect sextants. Then you could run all the other maps, and then whenever you have that one, like then you can keep crafting that one type of map over and over again, and keep running that and never running out of your perfectly set up section.
And you run your other maps in order to grow all of your seeds that you've planted, so that you have 50 bushels of seeds ready for when you run your super map that doesn't consume your resources. So every time you have all your seeds ready, you always get to run it with the super map, and it never even uses any of the resources you've invested. Well, never any of the sextants you've invested.
But it uses the seeds.
It does, yes. But it doesn't use the sextants. So you can keep triple beyond. You can triple beyond every super map. Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I like how chat's suggesting that this map thing, the sextant thing, is a lab enchant. I'm like, who's gonna run an entire labyrinth to enchant a map to reduce sextant use by 1?
I mean, if we could still mirror maps with bestiary, I would do it.
Oh god,
mirror maps.
That was a thing, and I'm going to keep bringing it up.
I'm just gonna say, if the new lab stuff is a case of you can run Uber Lab to add like basically 1 extra charge to your sextants, or run Uber Lab to get 1 part-time shitty temporary buff to Flask that I don't like, go for it. Fine.
No.
And now the justification is like using fractured fossils. It's like you run lab and then you use fractured fossil a bunch, so you don't have to run lab again. I was like, is that better? Is that better? Oh god. Let's just use our Mirror of Calandras on it so we don't use sextants. Like big brain plays.
Well, no, it's fine, because as we've established, there'll be a lab that just only gives mirrors. So you enchant your maps and you just do the mirror lab, and then it's infinite currency.
Like that callback.
Literally, welcome to Octavian. I don't know.
I just want to mirror it if it's a beast to mirror it. That was a lot cheaper than a mirror.
Okay.
I'm not crazy. Okay, fine.
Okay.
I would just on a more serious note, I'd like to point out that they have used the enchant slot before without you having to engage in lab, because we were looking at the flask thing as well and talking a bit about this. But cluster jewels have enchants on them. It's just they use that so that you can also have an implicit. It's just a mechanic they have so that they can still let you do implicits with other things. So they could use enchants without making us go to lab. So that means no lab rework, Raiz.
Someone in chat is really big brain.
I'm upset.
What you do is you get the enchant on your flask with full duration, and then you imprint it, and then you use the flask, and then you go back to the imprinted version once you're done, and you cheat the system.
Yes.
What? Is that cheating the system or cheating yourself?
Both.
I'm not sure.
That's good. Okay, I think since we've gone on for a while, if we just do round table, what are we most looking forward to and what are we most like concerned about? Just to like recap. So he wants to go first.
All of it, except two-handers if they don't change it. And then, yeah, I'm really concerned about the whole you can't store craft situation / when do you do it in a map or in your hideout. So I hope they get that figured out.
I share the same concerns as Raiz, which sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but I'm going to cop out. And I'm really looking forward to Penance Brand because it looks really cool and way more interesting and unique than previous brand playstyles. Come at my brand boys.
Is that the dot one?
No, that's the lightning explosion one. When you
Oh yeah,
that one does
I
look
already
cool.
know I'm league starting with the cold one, so it's like I don't even care about the numbers. It's just like I'm fucking gaming, okay? So
Nice.
sick. I did cop out on the like what am I looking forward to? So yeah, I will say as a non-cop out, yeah, the cold brand looks sick. Or a Penance Vortex brand. Oh.
Looking forward to all the new build stuff we can do, all the keystones and items. It's really good. I'm actually really looking forward to the whole crafting thing, and I actually hope that they make it so that you have to sort of make a choice. You know, kind of like they kind of force it on you that you do something with it, so you don't just sit there and hoard and store. I think that could be a nice little change, though. Hopefully, it's not going to feel too bad to discourage players to engage with it.
I'm really looking forward to. Oh, you go ahead before I go.
I'm just correcting that I said penance and I meant Arcanist, I think. Is that what it's called?
Arcanist is the one that casts
Arcanist.
other ones.
I thought that was a bit off. Yeah, good correction.
Please,
I'm really
Ziggy.
looking forward to the next Baeclast discussion when they reveal another flask modifier that has a decaying effect on it. I can't wait for that. That's the thing I'm most looking forward to. Yeah, in all seriousness, crafting like to the point where like the crafting where I'm to the point where I'm like maybe even considering doing like solo self-found or group self-found or like a private league start. This league, like it's got me really amped for making my own gear with this system. All the way. So really, really amped for the crafting. At the same time, yes, I echo the same sentiments. Most concerned about the crafting not being stored and being timed effectively. Like very concerned about how that'll actually play and whether that's going to turn off a ton of people from the crafting mechanic. So yeah, I echo that same concern.
Definitely the passive changes. Passive tree changes always the thing I'm most excited about every single patch. About the league itself, I think it will be a nice change of pace to have a less invasive league. Well, generally, I'm not a fan of leagues that can feel vanilla. And outside of the crafting thing, which is my biggest concern, I'd say my main concern could be that if it doesn't quite land on the first couple of days, you could end up feeling like I'm just playing vanilla PoE. So that I think would be my biggest concern. But that will be super refreshing for so many people. So even though that is one of my concerns, I'm excited about that because I'm sure there are a lot of people who just like Delirium was too much. So yeah.
I actually have one more thing.
Go on.
Me too. Mine's very short though. I'm very amped for glowy lights. Like
yes.
The lighting in the freaking gardens or the neon lights and shit. Tron League aesthetics. I'm amped for that shit. We didn't mention that at all.
It will be
but
nice
that's
to have
awesome.
something which isn't grey. Delirium was very
Yeah,
yeah.
so-
I agree.
It's refreshing.
I will air my excitement. Ah, like that. I can guess what I'm excited for. I actually think that's gonna. I think it's gonna be really, really nice.
Put that into a loot filter.
No.
Third exalt.
Dude, I'm
I need-
hyped for Warcry. I'm actually really hyped for Warcry. I think they already
Oh.
added like a slight. Like,
That
I
was
actually
your
think they added
Warcry?
something really cool. I've been using Enduring Cry a lot, so I'm really excited what they can do with that. I think that could be like the next tier of meddling.
That's your war cry.
Now, Path of Exile, now with microphone integration. Shout louder to make your war cry more effective.
Oh god. What was it, like Nintendogs or something? Like the DS, you had to
so
like
many
fucking
times.
talk at your fucking dog, like, you're a good dog, do what you're fucking told. That was awful. Anyway, thank you everyone for coming on. Next Baeclast, hopefully we're trying to get a Dev 1 booked in before the new league comes out. And hopefully everything is the complete opposite of everything we're afraid of, and the league will be perfect. So yeah. Bye-bye.
Mint.
Bye.